The story begins with the School of the Heavenly Origin being located in the middle of a mountain valley. This place was extremely calm and peaceful, and nothing prevented them from remaining that way. There was also an extremely peaceful atmosphere in the head's home. A certain man, who could be mistaken for a woman because of his long silver hair, pulled himself up heavily and yawned. Very soon he realized that it was finally time for him to wake up. He looked out the window and said that today, like the previous one, is filled with hope. However, before he could finish this, he noticed something was wrong. After all, this day, which did not foretell anything bad, began with a huge explosion that literally destroyed his house. Black smoke was spreading throughout the valley and someone was watching all this chaos. However, what is even more unexpected is the fact that the man came out of there relatively unharmed. Only his robe was a little damaged and dirty, while the man himself only coughed. And, as it turned out, the culprit of the incident was the fourth student of the School of Heavenly Origin, Nai Lo. The mischievous girl smiled radiantly and greeted the main character. The man put his hand on his forehead as if suffering from a headache. He said to call him master and asked if he didn't say not to wake him up using the explosion technique. The girl opened her eyes wide and said that she understood everything. However, it was obvious that Nai Luo had gotten it all wrong and thought that the master was saying that she shouldn't use the same techniques every time. With stars in her eyes, she said it was time for her to take on something completely new. Jiang Fan came to his senses late and tried to restore it, but it was completely unsuccessful. Nai Luo was already prepared for a new attack and smiled. A giant diagram appeared in the sky which was accompanied by strange symbols and what seemed to be a cloud of fire. The little girl turned to her master with a smile on her face. Lowering her hand and with anticipation in her eyes, she told him to get over it. This diagram increased in size even more and seemed to be heading towards the sun. As if you don't understand what's going on, Jiang Fan, still with his eyes closed, said that today the light of the sun is kind of cloudy. However, before he had time to agree, some kind of energy beam flew into his face, destroying everything around him. After the end of the attack, Nai Lo summoned a fiery cat demon who appeared next to her and growled. Nevertheless, even after such a huge explosion, a silhouette could be seen from the black smoke. This silhouette was a tired Jiang Fan, who could barely open his eyes. All his clothes were torn and it seemed as if there was not a single living place on him. Nevertheless, when the student saw this, she was extremely dissatisfied and only scared because she was not happy that he survived. However, at some point, Nai Lo decided to cheat and deliberately began to shout throughout the entire valley. She shouted that the master was injured and told the second sister, the mentor, to save him as soon as possible. As it turned out, there was more than one building in this valley. The door of one of them slowly opened. A beautiful girl came out from there, wearing high heels, who wondered why they had been calling her since the morning. Rubbing her sleepy eyes, the second student adjusted her glasses and said to call her when he dies. However, the unexpected woman opened her eyes wide as if she saw something amazing. With a quick step, she approached the main character, who was looking at everything that was happening in a stupor. She began to rush from side to side and said that the day had not yet come, and Jiang Fan was in this state and this happens every day. She encouraged the main character so that he could make others worry less about him. After that, she hurriedly began to take something out of her pocket. She wondered why she was the only one who asked him to be her mentor in the past. Jiang Fan opened his eyes with difficulty and asked the second student what she was going to do. However, immediately after this, as if with manic eyes, she said that this was her restorative potion, made according to a new composition, and told the main character to be smart and drink it all to the bottom. The man began to hastily step back, waving his arms. He asked if she had put something strange there, to which the woman, in an extremely unconvincing way and with a strange smile on her face, told him to relax. She smiled and said that this and her improved composition were her newest development. Grabbing the man by the neck, she threw the bottle of liquid directly into his mouth. Shi Luo said that she guarantees that the pain will be relieved as if by hand. A second later, Jiang Fan couldn't help but flinch in surprise because he instantly felt the changes. Concentrating, some strange aura enveloped his body, and Jiang Fan wondered if the potion really worked. She was like at some point, he noticed that there was too much of this mysterious radiance and asked what it was all about. Shi Luo smiled softly and said that she forgot to warn that in fact it had a possible tiny side effect. At some point, The man felt so bad that drops of sweat began to flow down his face. He couldn't help but call his student. At some point, green smoke began to erupt even from his own mouth, and he just clenched his teeth. For a while, his body began to glow with a bright light green light, and he opened his mouth and eyes wide. Green smoke around the main character engulfed the entire room while Shi Luo only watched the transformation. Nai Luo, who was standing nearby, covered her nose with her mouth and said that this time the power of the third sister's potion was much more impressive than she expected. Nai Luo smiled softly and a huge snake appeared from behind her. As it turned out, this woman was an unusual person and a snake demon. Shi Luo, still covering her mouth and nose with her hands, was surprised that the master was even able to fall from her potion. Shi Luo also watched this with interest. Poking him with a nearby stick, she said that this time the improvement was successful. Immediately after this, she began enthusiastically recording her observations. She also said that when calculating the proportion next time, she would need to increase the proportion of the herb of hundreds of poisons, and as for the dose of Mari, there is no point in adding so much. Very soon, another student flew in to join these two girls. She began to condemn the third student for teasing the main character again. However, the girl only showed a finger up to her older sister and said that this time her new potion turned out to be very successful, and after drinking it, the master even temporarily lost consciousness. The senior student of the School of Heavenly Order, Baya, became suddenly worried and wondered if everything would be okay with the master. Placing his body on her feet, she asked them how they could do it. She also said that as far as she remembers, Jiang Fan told her that if a person decided to become unconscious, he needed to do artificial respiration. With an expression of bliss on her face, she said that she was doing this to save the master and for no other reason at all. And for the students, they immediately covered their faces out of embarrassment because they understood that this was too daring a move. And exactly at the moment when this procedure began, Jiang Fan moved his finger, which indicated that he had already woken up. Baya kissed the main character when he opened his eyes in bewilderment. Very soon the lips separated, and Baya only smiled mysteriously. Immediately after this, her hair began to turn black and, licking her lips, the older student said that she had always wanted to try something similar with the master. With an expression of euphoria on her face, she said that such a chance comes along once in a millennium. After this, the main character's body was lifted into the air, and a strange dark energy surrounded him. The woman said that the essence and blood of the master is truly an incomparable medicine. Immediately after this, the girl's real body appeared. She turned out to be an older demon, a spider warrior. The demon said that it seemed to her that they had now become one. Jiang Fan covered his face with his hands and said that if Bai Yao didn't stop, he would lose his temper, spent it, and exactly at the moment when he said this, he opened his eyes slightly, which this time were not golden, but the color of fire. However, she had no intention of stopping at all. The black spider legs that sprouted from her back spoke of her intentions. At some point she was still able to calm down and her bast shoes disappeared. She began to worry that she had gone too far with the absorption this time. Other students also joined this discussion and asked questions about whether they should run now and whether Jiang Fan was safe. At that same moment, the entire valley was shaken by an incomprehensible vibration. Because of this earthquake, all three girls could not even keep themselves on their feet and wondered what had happened. At the same moment, a huge explosion sounded and the girl covered her face with her hands in surprise. Very soon, Jiang Fan appeared in the air, who, despite the fact that he was in torn clothes, had a smile on his face. It was clearly noticeable that he was extremely angry. His eyes glowed red and he said that this time it was definitely not going to be done easily. As if the doll girls with calm expressions on their faces ran away in different directions and said that the master was furious so they had to run away. Very soon, Jiang Fan was left completely alone on earth. Despite the fact that he was extremely toothy, the man understood that, on top of everything else, they ran very fast. Having relaxed, he stretched and said that if this continues, then sooner or later they will drive him to fever and then the body may not limit itself to physical punishment. However, at the moment when he pulled himself up, some piece of paper flew into his face. It turned out that these same pieces of paper were handed over by a postman passing by a flying crane. The man looked at the bird and wondered if he was mistaken, because even the postal crane manages to undermine his state of mind. However, after that he paid attention to the contents of the message. It spoke of inviting all leaders of major movements to take part in a congress that occurs once every 10 years, at which everyone will have the opportunity to choose their most preferred movement, as well as accept students with the most extraordinary talents. Jiang Fan was lost in his thoughts and realized that these leaflets were distributed by the old people. After all, the Ascension Congress is a good opportunity to recruit disciples. After this, the guy smiled and realized that in this way he could find smart and attractive students and properly address what kind of respect should be shown to a mentor. At the same time, he was dressed in beautiful clothes and with a smile on his face said that the matter was not waiting and he was leaving immediately. For a moment he stopped as if he had forgotten something. He turned and looked at what was left of his previous house and realized that he still hadn't decided on something. The man said that he was going to leave for a while and it was as if the air asked someone to patch up the building. After that, he turned around and continued on his way, not paying attention to anything. After some time, a mysterious girl appeared on earth. As if the spirit of water, she said that such a request would not bother her at all. She smiled and began to whisper something. At the same time, it was not only Jiang Fan who saw the distribution of leaflets. Some rogue also noticed the leaflets and picked up one of them. Feminine hands, which did not at all suit such an outfit, bent down in front of the leaf and took it. Adjusting her hood again, the girl began to walk forward. She took a few confident steps and found herself in a prosperous place. As it turned out, the golden-haired beauty was looking at the valley and reading a leaflet. The day of the Ascension Congress was especially beautiful. All the streets of the city were filled with life. And in the midst of all this beautiful spectacle, if only one person stood out, it was the same rogue from the mountain. As if he had never been to such places, the stranger looked around like a child and constantly exclaimed. The blue-eyed girl looked at the pieces of jewelry with such a look as if she had never seen anything like it in her life. At some point, she raised her head and smelled a lovely smell. This smell brought the girl to the food area and her mouth watered from such a wonderful smell. At the same time, her stomach growled, clearly from hunger. An adult man apparently asked if the young lady wanted some hot pies. However, the girl, out of embarrassment, only closed herself even more in her hood and thanked the man for the offer. Heading back, the girl looked only at the floor while a mysterious man walked past her. This mysterious man turned out to be Jiang Fan, who from the Lyceum said that from time to time you still need to go out in public, otherwise he will completely rust. Covering his eyes from the sun with his hands, he gave in to the question of where to find such a place that had been prepared for the school of the heavenly principle. The man arrogantly believed that, given the wide popularity of his school, they would obviously be in some kind of center. However, let's return to the assessment room itself. More and more people passed through the ancient frame and more participants were eliminated. After some time, the leader called out the name Chen Tusheng. The little boy approached a special apparatus, and the organizer watched his actions. The man said that he had a low-grade spirit root and had no potential to be restored to immortality. With such a strict verdict, the boy literally burst into tears and wondered how this could happen to his daughter. However, he-man had absolutely no time to try to calm the child who was desperately holding on to his clothes and begging for another chance. The severe overseer said that for those who strive to become immortal, the root of the spirit is akin to the foundation of a tower that rises to the heavens. He also said that it was literally impossible to achieve immortality with his root and told him to leave. Without thinking twice, he then called Lin, who turned out to be our girl under the hood. The warden allowed the girl to approach the device and just watched her actions. Nevertheless, in his thoughts he could not help but wonder where such a slob came from and whether in modern times even girls from the wilderness want to achieve immortality. The man understood that today the spiritualized energy in this world is becoming more and more discharged, which has led to the fact that it has become much more difficult for all schools to find successors. The man wondered whether this time there would be no chance of finding students with outstanding talent. Still rubbing his beard, he wondered if heaven might just throw him some Eugene on the side of the road. At the same time, the girl gave in to the question of whether she should do like everyone else and just put her hands to it. However, as soon as she did the following actions, her body seemed to be engulfed by a strange blue light. At some point, this light began to spread even to the device, while Ling looked at what was happening in surprise. But the selective one mentally turned towards the little girl and wondered if this was the root of high-rank immortality. However, very soon he widened his eyes even more and realized that he was mistaken. He ultimately realized that it was a top-rank legendary spiritual root as the huge table of light pierced the sky. At the same time, Ling looked at this with bulging eyes and did not understand what was happening. All the people in the square were instantly attracted by such an amazing event and rumors began to spread like wildfire. Very soon the judge was surrounded by all sorts of recruiters from different sects who began to fight for this unfortunate girl. In addition, ordinary people first approached the recruiters, creating a huge crowd that just wanted to gawk at the outstanding genius. Among the crowd that was carried away by this stream of crazy people was Jiang Fan, who was still wondering where everyone was running and whether something had really happened. At the same time, a certain elder approached Ling and offered her an earth-rank flying sword. He asked to accept this modest offering as a gift on the occasion of their meeting. Still smiling, the overseer told me to join his Zanpakuto school, because if she agreed, he would immediately teach her the perfect defense sword technique. At the same time, the girl looked at this treasure as an incredible toy and asked her uncle if she could really take something like that. However, at the same time, another old man passed through the crowd and asked the warden if he really wanted to seduce the owner of the heavenly root with one insignificant earthly sword. Immediately after this, he took out 1,000-year-old ginseng from his bosom, which is capable of granting longevity, which surprised absolutely everyone who was nearby, because this medicine can extend life by 30 years. He handed this treasure to the girl and said that she could receive as much treasure of this quality as she wanted. At the same time, the warden could not help but argue with the old man and said not to touch her, because it was the warden who discovered her. Immediately after this, the girl literally began to be bombarded with gifts of various values. Ling was clearly surprised by so many things of value that she had never seen in her life. Ling said that she just came to sign up and couldn't accept all this. However, the recruiters told her not to worry and told her that when she entered into such values, she would have as many as she wanted, as well as opportunities. The joyful girl asked if she could really become immortal, to which absolutely every recruiter told her yes. However, at the same moment, the arrival of the Monastery of Truth was urgently announced and all the willow cheeks immediately fell silent. Everyone began to make way, and special defenders tried to make a way through this crowd. They all said that one of them lacks a game of discernment and asked the question whether at least one of them is capable of accepting the owner of heavenly roots. Very soon the main thing urgently arrived at the Monastery of Truth, lived. Immediately after this, whispers began to spread. No one expected such an important person to appear, but in such a meeting. Leaning over, the man asked if she was the same girl. The man smiled welcomingly and said that he was the abbot of the Monastery of Truth and asked to accept the artifact of the heavenly wound on the occasion of their acquaintance. The man also said that if she agreed to join the Monastery of Truth, she would become his only personal disciple. Mentally, the entire square was filled with conversations, because it had never happened that the head of the monastery personally invited someone and cajoled them with an artifact of the heavenly wound. Many began to envy this girl because they understood that the man was not stingy. At some point, the wounded woman looked at him with her round eyes and asked if he really wanted to say that he was accepting her as his student. However, at the same moment, the man noticed a certain bracelet on the girl's hand, about white. Instantly his expression changed and turned from friendly to furious. He instantly turned purple and stopped his hand from handing over the artifact, telling her to wait a second. As if spreading his rage through his aura, he asked where she got this bracelet that was on her hand. The girl pressed all the gifts and the bracelet that was on her hand and said that this was a protective amulet that her mother gave her. However, the man did not calm down and only exclaimed with an icy voice. However, very soon he could not resist and, throwing the girl to the floor, asked why in this case there were evils of magic on her protective amulets. Immediately after this, the people around her finally began to realize that it really was magic and cursed the girl's mouth. As it turned out, due to the man's blow, the bracelet activated the magic of alimony and summoned the barrier of the air god. At the same time, the tattered woman only begged to stop with tears in her eyes. However, the man was unapproachable and said that it was high time for them to be a stranger and show their true colors. Immediately after this, he summoned another technique and began to attack the poor girl, who only screamed in pain. And the main blow came from the air barrier itself, which broke into pieces because of this technique. Very soon, the fragments of the shield disappeared while the bracelet itself broke into pieces amid the crying and screams of the girl for him to stop too. Immediately after this, there was a huge explosion that released large clouds of smoke. Let's go to. Among all this chaos and a lot of dust, it was nevertheless clear that this beautiful girl, as it turned out, because of the explosion, the girl's hood was removed and her beautiful blonde hair was visible. At the same time, the girl herself was lying on the floor, unable to understand what had happened because her valuable ticket had just been broken. As soon as the crowd saw this hair, they could not believe what happened because the golden hair shows that she belongs to the barbarian line. Nevertheless, they began to doubt the verdict of the observer. After all, it cannot be that a savage from the western regions would also be the owner of a heavenly root. Rumors and speculation began to spread like wildfire because no one understood what would happen to her next. At some point, Jiang Fan walked behind one of the observers and asked him what was going on, because he had heard that a talented student had been discovered. However, the man angrily told him not to even mention this as this person is a man from a barbarian tribe from the west and most likely something went wrong since she decided that she was worthy of learning the Taoist principles of their technique. It is worth mentioning that in ancient times the earth was a haven for countless earthly and heavenly demons. The human race showed no fear at all in the face of danger, and the spiritual race from the west took advantage of the opportunity and led a futile attack on the eastern continent, for which it was ultimately defeated. However, an even more egregious case is that after the Great War, the survivors of the demons entered the barbarian lands where they were given shelter and protection that was simply not mental. However, Jiang Fan actually wondered how it was that one of those onlookers in the pillars said that if she were a person from the eastern continent, they still wouldn't have been able to get her. He said that such weed currents as they were called simply for a round shield don't even have to think about it. Jiang Fan just felt his heart being stabbed by such truthful words. However, the man did not understand why, in any case, they were going overboard so much, attacking the little girl with their entire crowd. At the same time, Ling was in a state of stupor and panic. Absolutely no one supported her and only drops of tears flowed from her eyes. The girl seemed to have lost everything and reached out with her hand for her mother's broken omelet. Clutching sharp stones that would surely bring her more pain than anything, she was in complete despair. All these conversations still did not subside and, as if for the amusement of the public, she just sat with her head bowed. The warden understood that despite the test, which showed that the girl is the owner of the essence exclusively, the essence is that even with such a root, it would be impossible for her to perceive spiritualized energy because of its origin. Both heads of families understood that in any case, with such an entity, she would still remain a dummy, and besides, if, under the current circumstances, they accepted her, then most likely their sex would not be able to explain such an act to others in the school. However, at some point, another old man came out of this whole crowd and took the ginseng with accusations that she simply wanted to deceive them all. The man told her to be a good savage and return to her west and practice useless magic there. The girl literally crawled on her knees and said that she didn't need all this, but begged to be allowed to join the school. However, she didn't even have time to finish her request when the man again threw the poor girl to the floor and, accusing her that she wanted to join the king's school of healing, again called her a worthless savage. The man turned around with a stern look and said that this would only be possible in her dream. Ling began to cry even more. Unable to contain her emotions, she begged everyone present because it wouldn't matter to her who would teach her, she just needed to learn. She said that she simply had to learn the path to becoming immortal. Lowering her head, the girl plunged into her memories. In the middle was another woman who looked very much like her, most likely her mother, who held her hand. Immediately after this, that same elder approached her and said that a stranger would never reach agreement with them. The man said that the distance to the desert lands is tens of thousands of li and he has no idea how she got here. The man said that he understands, given her youth, this fact that their monastery of truth is the leader of righteous movements, he agrees to temporarily shelter her. However, immediately after that, he smiled cruelly and said that in a few days he would safely return her to where she belonged. At the same time, cruel thoughts were born in the man's head because there was a root of the highest heavenly rank right in front of him. He instantly became obsessed with the idea of extracting her spirit root. However, suddenly someone stopped the man, and the girl instantly looked towards her savior. This man turned out to be Jiang Fan, who took a step forward and blocked the path to the girl. He said that since none of them thought that they could insert this young lady into us, he asked why don't they give her to him. He opened his eyes slightly and said that he needed this student. As soon as the sect elder heard such a statement, he abruptly fell silent and plunged into his thoughts while the rest of the crowd waited for his answer. One of those protect yourself and men pointed his finger at the main character and asked where this robber came from. He stated how dare he interfere in the affairs of the Monastery of Truth while Jiang Fan stood silently. At some point, Jiang Fan asked if this Congress was not organized in order to allow each movement and school to recruit students for itself, and if no one needed it, then why couldn't he accept it? At the same time, the man smiled softly. The bodyguard was about to scream, but the elder stopped him. Jiang Fan did not pay attention to all this showdown and extended his hand to the little girl. The man asked if everything was okay and if she could get up. The tearful Ling couldn't believe it and just looked at the main character with caution. However, at the same moment, when the girl was about to accept the hand of her savior, loud laughter sounded. As it turned out, that same elder laughed heartily and furiously. He said that such a young man does not need to turn to the crooked soul of the evil one just because he heard that this girl has a spirit of the so-called heavenly rank. He kindly explained that despite the fact that these barbarians look similar to them, their meridians initially simply cannot select spiritualized energy. The man said that for some reason her inclinations were not good, they were of no use and they were using them, she was just childish tricks. However, the next insults, which the girl was already accustomed to hearing, sounded the voice of the hero, who told her not to pay attention to the remaining points of the tatter, and sharply opened her eyes. Raising her head, she looked at her savior as Jiang Fan continued. With a soft smile, he said that he was eating something he wanted, then she could just take it and say, and handed it to her. The tattered woman silently stared down and accepted the hand of the main character. Immediately after that she said that she still wanted something. With despair under her eyes, she wants to learn the principles of Tao. She said that she wanted to improve herself to become immortal and save her people. As soon as Jiang Fan heard these words, he said that this was a great idea and patted the girl on the head. With the same soft smile, the man said that in this case, starting from today, she becomes his student, as well as a member of the school of heavenly origin. The elder of the major sect said that outsiders cannot enter into the training to achieve immortality and this is an unchangeable rule of cultivation. He asked whether Jiang Fan even realized the consequences of his action. However, Jiang Fan just smiled softly and asked what rule was being discussed. Squinting and opening his eyes slightly, he asked whether the rules were an immutable truth. At the same time, an incomprehensible memory appeared in his head. Their blurred forces were in the middle of stone pillars, united by some kind of aura, and in the middle of all this, there was Jiang Fan, who was simply whipped with two hooks and held on only by the power of will. An unknown ephemeral creature called the name of the main character and said that he went against the will of the sky. He looked at the man and asked if he admitted his guilt. At the same time, Jiang Fan was still hanging from the 4 golden hooks that had pierced his chest and arms. And with the last of his strength and barely opening his eyes from the abundance of blood, he said that the will of heaven is nothing more than shackles in which they imprison the living and nothing more. Jiang Fan said that what he hates most in this life is the rules. However, the elder was not going to give up her goal and said that living people are not capable of improving. The man said that he had absolutely no idea what he meant and took a strange bottle out of his pocket. However, the crowd instantly recognized that this bottle was a jar of heavenly communication and the scientist of truth decided to take this matter seriously. The chief abbot began to recite the technique and many strange symbols began to appear around him. The man said that he would still allow her to go where she belonged. Is it true? Jiang Fan looked at all this aura with a little disdain and boredom. Suddenly, someone picked up Ling and she found herself in the air. This person turned out to be Jiang Fan, who summoned the spiritual technique of the wood element, which made the entire area visible to him. Jiang Fan exclaimed greatly because he did not expect such a beautiful view to open from here. When the abbot saw that these two had easily avoided her attack, his laptop was blown out of his vein, but he could not say anything. But at the same time, Ling stepped her feet onto this very technique. Like a small child, she bent down and was simply happy that she was standing on the clouds. Jiang Fan smiled softly and asked if she wanted to teach him this. As soon as the girl heard that this could be learned, she asked if it would be possible for her. At the same time, the elder shouted at the top of his voice and asked the main character if he really wants to become the enemy of all the schools present here. As soon as the girl heard such a threat, which clearly carried great responsibility with it, the baby got scared. Jang Fan patted her on the head and told her not to be afraid, because this old man is simply shaking the air. Jang Fan pointed his finger at the man and said that this time she had a great chance to demonstrate the strongest magic that Ta was capable of. As soon as the elder heard such a proposal from the protagonist, he immediately fell into a precipitate. At the same time, Ling herself thought that this was not entirely decent and did not know whether she should really do it. However, Jiang Fan calmed the girl down and told her to relax because now that he had become her master, she could trust him. Ling took on a serious expression and agreed with this proposal. After that, she closed her eyes and began to concentrate. All elements of clothing began to float around her, along with her hair. At the same time, Ling called upon the great goddess of fire Angelica and seemed to be in a state of trance. She stretched her hands forward and, calling to the goddess, said that her heat would warm the whole world, and the devoted novice called to her. She begged the spirit of fire to grant her the whole night of her flame. At the same time, the crowd began to look at the sky, where strange symbols appeared, and slowly began to notice that they were getting hotter and hotter. At the same time, the overseer wondered if this was Western magic. The elder of the Truth sect, however, only smiled and said that this was just clumsy nonsense. However, before he could say that, a huge meteorite of colossal size and volume appeared. Ling herself was extremely surprised that this time the magic circle turned out to be so large. As if I understood what was going on, Jiang Fan smiled softly and looked at everything that was happening with her eyes closed. Suddenly they could see that a certain dragon had appeared, who would like to tail this meteorite with you. As soon as the elder noticed this, he easily opened his eyes because such a sight rarely happens. As it turned out, the heavenly Qilin appeared from the sky along with the meteorite. With his huge mouth, he literally swallowed this meteorite and the symbol split into pieces. As it turned out, this Qilin was a relic beast and had the name Lava Qilin. At the same time, Ling looked at everything that was happening with wide eyes and wondered if this was really her magic. Jiang Fan smiled and said that this is her strength. When the meteorite was in the dragon's mouth and swallowed it, it was clear that something terrible would happen soon. Jiang Fan just said that her master slightly helped add to her fever. Immediately after this, a huge meteorite, which seemed to have grown from the influence of the dragon, began to fall down. At the same time, all the recruiters began to get scared because they couldn't believe what was happening. They understood that they needed to get their feet on the ground as soon as possible because they couldn't escape from something like that. At the same time, the elder of the Truth sect held the bottle of wood forward and shouted. As a result, this entire blow fell precisely on the elder, who understood that this was quite serious. The meteorite and the dragon concentrated all their attention on this elder, leaving him no opportunity to do anything else. A fire of incredible temperature and heat enveloped the body of the man, who began to scream in pain. An intense table of fire appeared there and, as if reflected from the ground, provoking a huge explosion, it went back into the sky. There was a strange amber pebble in the sky, which was covered with heavenly energy. Suddenly, that same amber began to rotate from side to side, and a huge number of rays of light began to stand out from it. As a result, instead of an explosion, this jewel was able to provoke real fireworks, which looked simply fabulous. The girl also could not believe what was happening and looked at everything that was happening with enchanted eyes, covering her mouth. Jiang Fan looked at all this with a rather apathetic look, but did not stop smiling. He said that this time everything worked out quite well. Ling instantly lit up with energy and asked if she could learn the same magic. Jiang Fan said that she is a natural, she can do it all. When they return to school he will teach her everything, but before that happens, he asked if she should change her address, stroking her head. All this time, the girl addressed him as an older brother and simply did not know any other address, while Jiang Fan looked at her expectantly. However, very soon Ling smiled radiantly and, closing her eyes, called the main character a master. We soon found our heroes in their refuge, in the mountain valley. At the same time, all the other students still had no idea about the arrival of a new comrade, and Nilo lay on her bed without foreshadowing anything. Suddenly, someone started calling the girl and she was snoring loudly. She deliberately snored louder and louder, but her interlocutor realized that the girl was doing this on purpose. She was told to get up and stop lying there, when the girl herself turned over to the other side and covered her ears with her hands, not wanting to wake up. As it turned out, Shi Luo was outside the door, knocking on the fourth student's apartment. Despite all her reluctance, Nai Lo Taki approached the door and asked who was there. The girl slowly opened the door, not particularly interested in everything that was happening. She supported her head and asked what kind of person could be calling her at this hour. If it seemed Shi Luo, who said that the master returned to everything else again as a younger student and offered to look at her. When Nai Luo heard about this news, she was a little surprised and asked if it was really so. The third sister covered her mouth with her hand and said that she heard that the new student was just cute and asked if she wanted to have a little sister as a mentor. Nevertheless, she mentioned there that it is not so easy to imagine Ling Er, because according to the message sent by the master, she seems to have arrived from the west and is also capable of using magic. At the same time, the third Ling Er could not think about anything else except the fact that very soon they would meet one of the sorceresses about whom legends only speak. However, Nai Lo dispelled the dreams of her senior mentor and told her to stop thinking about something strange and go alone for now, because as soon as she gets ready, she goes and drives. The third Ling Er turned and said that in this case, she went to the main hall while the second Ling Er just nodded her head. Nai Lo left and clicked her tongue because she did not expect the enchantress to arrive. At the same time, the main characters and the student entered the sect's buildings. Jiang Fan explained that in front of her were the schools of the heavenly origin, as well as the place where from now on she would live and cultivate, while Ling Er was surprised at how luxurious everything was here. Jiang Fan also said that in that direction there is a training arena, and there is a repository of Buddhist canons, pointing to certain places. Ultimately, he pointed to one more place and said that there was a place where everyone usually lived. Ling Er looked at this school with incredible curiosity, as if she had never seen anything like it, while the main character was tormented by the thought that basically, in the end, everything lies in ruins. However, during their leisurely walk, the students began to purr, which indicated that she was very hungry. She bent down and apologized to the master, saying that she had not taken crumbs into her mouth for a long time. Jiang Fan smiled softly and patted the girl on the head, saying that everything is fine and there are no rules in the school of heavenly origin that require fasting. The man said that it was just time for breakfast and they would all head to the main hall, where Jiang Fan would introduce her to everyone. Ling Er smiled radiantly and agreed with the master's proposal. Jiang Fan told her not to be afraid of anyone and said that even though her mentor sisters have a little strange character, they are still good. Suddenly, someone called the main character from behind. Beautiful black hair fluttered in the wind. As it turned out, Shi Luo rushed into the arms of the main character because she was glad that he had arrived, while Ling Er screamed in surprise. She said that while the man was away, she prepared a lot of new elixirs that she would like to try on the master. Jiang Fan paid the fee and said that he would return to this issue later. At the same time, Ling Er had already managed to think to herself and some immobilities. Her face instantly turned red and she couldn't even say her sentence. Unexpectedly, most likely, Ling Er noticed the presence and was quite surprised. She bent down in front of the new student and said that her name was Shi Luo and she could safely call her big sister. Ling Er introduced herself and blushed in front of the girl. Shi Luo smiled slyly and said that the student has a wonderful name. At the same time, in her mind she was already trying on a lot of strange and not so strange clothes on the cutie and could only think about how she could play with her. However, suddenly, someone hit the third student on the head. This person turned out to be Jiang Fan, who immediately told her that the existence of those pieces of clothing was not a reason for her to offend her younger classmate. Shi Luo was outraged by her master's assumption and said that she was just showing concern. At the same time, Ling Er could not understand what they were talking about and only asked what kind of clothes they were talking about. Jiang Fan coughed and said that she did not need to pay attention to the third mentor sister and asked if she was hungry, suggesting that she go to the main hall. Very soon, Ling Er found herself near the hall and could not help but notice how delicious it smelled. The man said that this is where they usually eat their food and because there are only a few of them, they eat everything together. Very soon the student approached the dining table and her mouth began to water from hunger. The girl said that everything looked very tasty, to which Shi Luo agreed. She said that if she really wanted to know, then their elder sister, their mentor, had personally prepared it all. At the same time, the same heroine of the discussions came in and began to be indignant. She said that one should not talk with one's mouth full, and this was their first meal together with a younger classmate. At the same time, Jiang Fan began to look around to understand a little where Nai Luo was, because she is usually the first one to go eat. Shi Luo also turned her head and said that she had no idea, because she had already walked and woke her up. While bringing in a plate with another meal, Baya said that she met her recently and she said that she was not alone and there was no need to wait for her. Jiang Fan turned around and asked if this was true. Jiang Fan thought that Nai Luo would be a little more enthusiastic about this and thought that she had simply matured. At the same time, someone was on the training ground beating the unfortunate dummy. This person turned out to be Nai Lo, who entered her form and mercilessly penalized all the robots. There were already several units of broken opponents around her, but she still could not calm down. She covered her ears with her hands and was simply confused because she believed that Jiang Fan did this on purpose. She remembered all these voices that accused her of being a yokai and simply called her a monster, which could not but affect the young child's psyche. At some point, she came out of her memories and screamed for everyone to shut up. At the same time, along with her screams, more and more flames spread around her until Tanya could calm down. Not unexpectedly, Nai Luo felt someone's presence behind her and asked who was here. However, without even waiting for an answer, she immediately sent her fist towards Ling Er's face, who could not come to her senses. However, Nai Luo stopped her hand in time and asked who she was. The girl turned sharply and asked who was there. She almost pointed her fist at Ling Er's face, who was extremely frightened. However, the girl stopped in time and asked who she was. While struggling, Lin Er said that her name was Lin Er and handed it to her in the tray. She was worried that she was training too much. A fourth said very lowly that it didn't really feel like a workout and was just an exercise at best. Closing one eye, she asked if she was new. With embarrassment, Ling Er said that this was indeed the case and she came because she did not see her at dinner today. He will come. She shrank even more and said that it was for this reason that the master asked to visit her. Gritting her teeth, Nai Luo became angry and realized that it was because of his request that she came while Jiang Fan himself could not come. Ling Er said that the master told her that the elder sisters are very good people and told her to follow them to get to know the sect. However, the fourth Ling Er had no intention of helping her new partner and only turned her away. After that, she said to stay away from her because if she knows what she is doing, then she'd better stay away from her eyes. After all, not everyone is as sociable as Jiang Fan. So, with his eyes wide open, she pointed at Shi Ling Er and said that she would not be sociable with the barbarians. Ling Er once again heard such an insult directed at herself, and at first it put her into a stupor. When she was about to fall silent in indignation, someone patted her on the back and called out to her. This person turned out to be Jiang Fan. Ling Er asked if she had accidentally said something wrong. The free hero was silent at first, but said that she did everything right and said not to worry. Without anyone she would not mock me. I understand that most likely this girl was faced with many things. At the same time, the man looked at Nai Luo's retreating back and realized that asking to meet with the fourth did not seem to be a particularly good choice. Very soon the night came, which captured the entire sky with its beauty. Like petals, the cherry blossoms began to fall down while Jiang Fan was watching this beauty. At some point, the man didn't even turn around to ask the heir what had arrived there. Someone was holding a bottle of alcohol in his hands and poured it into a saucer. This same person asked if the main character was bored drinking alone when the moon was so beautiful. This person turned out to be Baya, who asked if Jiang Fan knew exactly what would come to this, when, after that, the girl asked what he would do next. His mother said that as soon as he saw the fourth Ling Er today, he suddenly remembered the first time he met her. She looked at the alcohol in her cup and remembered all the hell the girl had to go through. He remembered that flame, a sight that never left his mind. He remembered later that it was as if yesterday she was throwing herself at everyone who approached her, and even after all this time, she was still the same leg as it was when they first met. Jiang Fan said that in the end, he thinks that he is still not doing his role as a master very well. Baya said that he gave them a place to stay and also a home, which is a great salvation for all of them. Ultimately, they raised their plates of alcohol, and Baya asked if he wanted to use the opportunity to pull the fourth disciple out of the past, which Jiang Fan couldn't help but agree with, but also not deny. There will be alcohol. He said that in any case he simply wanted all the students to get along with each other, and in the end, he had to drink alone as a sign of grief. Jiang Fan slightly opened his eyes and looked at the beautiful moon. Watching this beautiful landscape, he could not help but agree that chaos was always going on. At the same time, the girl said that there is anything in the world, but she is interested in him. Jiang Fan smiled because he realized that this was once again a flirtation on the part of his student, but he could not contain his smile. At the same time, the next day, Jiang Fan was in the company of a huge number of books and records, trying to learn something. A certain butterfly, most likely fairy, said that the reason for Ling Er's physical problems is that she has been imbued with the magic of the Western continent for many years, and besides learning how to use magical power, she can no longer absorb spiritual energy to deepen her body like ordinary people do. Jiang Fan also wondered if it was because she had a different physique that she couldn't train in the usual way. However, unexpectedly, Shi Luo passed out and said that she had finally finished. Jiang Fan shuddered, but turned back and asked why exactly she finished. The girl smiled radiantly and even let out a small laugh. She pointed with her hands to the doorway where Lin Er was visible, under new clothes, that she could not come forward. Confused, she said that her elder sister said that this charge would help in cultivation, however, she doubts it. The third sister said that this dress is not only impervious to severe damage, but also not vulnerable to spear mutilation, and also has the effect of collecting spiritual energy, which makes motivation twice as effective, and on top of that, the main character likes this design. And out of embarrassment, the man plunged into the pile of books and shouted her name. Having notably mocked her master, Shi Luo leaned over and said that this was exactly what she had predicted. Jiang Fan walked out of the library and coughed loudly. With embarrassment, he opened his eyes and said that this dress suits her very well. I understand that Shi Luo has returned to her old ways. And sighed and said that after wearing such clothes, she thought that Jiang Fan would treat her like a strange person. Jiang Fan approached the girl and said that he would teach her the basic method of cultivating immortality. However, he looked at the meeting as repeating the theory, and this would be a good opportunity to test it. The girl immediately felt something was wrong and began to sweat. Feigning innocence, she said that she suddenly remembered that her new medicine was still being made. Leaning over, she said that Ling Er should listen well to the main character, because there is no one in the world who knows more about cultivation than himself. However, unexpectedly the man grabbed the girl by the robe and asked where she was going. With a soft smile on his face, he said that I don't think today is the day to create a cure. According to the clock, the girl asked if she really remembers incorrectly, and today is the day when she needs to collect herbs. Now with the same soft smile he said that her sister was looking at her and told her to set a good example. After that, he placed a stack of books on the table. Without thinking twice, he said to read it all. As the girls began to step back from fear, Jiang Fan said that they had plenty of free time. Very soon a beautiful morning arrived, which was no different from all the previous ones. Jiang Fan gave a lecture to any girls and explained that there is a difference between spiritual energy and magical power, and asked if they wanted to ask their question. At the same time, both girls were in a state of confusion, while Ling Er literally automatically repeated everything she had learned while Shi Luo begged to spare her. At the same time, the fourth Ling Er was in front of the pool of water. She looked at him and wondered why Jiang Fan was treating the new girl well. Very soon, the new girl was taken care of by Baya, who was friendly towards her youngest. I'll go. With the same enthusiasm, Shi Luo fed the new girl her apparatus, trying to help her. Jiang Fan also did not lag behind and taught the girl everything he could do. Just be silent overnight. On one of these beautiful days, Ling Er lay down straight on the table from overwork and fell asleep. Very soon, Jiang Fan entered the library. He put his hand on the notebook with the girl's notes and wondered why this child sleeps and remembers so much about technology in his sleep. He stroked the girl and understood that these were significant results, because she was able to learn all the basic theory in just 10 days. He wondered what she was doing that could do such a thing. With gentle stroking, Ling Er herself woke up and slowly opened her blue eyes. Rising, she asked what the master was doing here. Jiang Fan said that she had a hard time and next he will teach her motivation techniques, but first she must promise him one thing. I'll come. the man understood that in the future she should not use magic in front of strangers unnecessarily, because it would bring great danger. With the girl, she understood it this way and was once again convinced that Jiang Fan was also very worried about her. After that, Ling looked confidently in her eyes at her master and said that she understood everything. Very soon the main thing was doing together with the student on the site. Jiang Fan told her to calm down herself, relax her mind and naturally perceive the aura around her, and then there she could use the technique and follow all the rules that Jiang Fan taught her. The man also said that she must practice the technique constantly, no matter how difficult it will be. Jiang Fan understood that now, from a cultivation perspective, most of these are used to obtain spiritual energy between heaven and earth, and the first step is to sense the natural spirituality of the energy. Jiang Fan was worried that almost a week had passed, and Ling still could not accurately determine the form of spiritual energy. Jiang Fan understood that even if the spiritual energy entered the body, it would quickly be removed by the magical power in her body. This is how the day passed. Every time other students visited them and Jiang Fan sent them away so as not to disturb them. Very soon it was deep night and Jiang Fan was still looking after the girl. At some point, Jiang Fan said that the training was over for today and the girl slowly opened her eyes. She didn't understand why he needed to stop right now and said that everything was fine and she could still hold out. Jiang Fan said that she would not be able to achieve everything in one day and said that it was too late now and told her to go home and rest. Ling bowed respectfully and said that she would pass. She walked towards her home with a sad expression on her face while Jiang Fan watched her back. Jiang Fan knew that it was good to be motivated, but she shouldn't worry too much. At some point, the man said Bayao's name. Jiang Fan said that he would go after her until she came out of the shadows. Most likely, this was not the Baya we knew because her eyes were bright red and she licked her lips and said that she respected the teacher's orders. Very soon, Ling found herself in her bed and extended her hand up. She was clearly unhappy that nothing had happened all this time and wondered whether she would be able to cultivate if she continued at this pace. Nevertheless, the girl did not wonder and told herself that she must study and must become strong. However, while the girl was making a motivated speech, she noticed how a strange substance appeared in the room along with cobwebs. The girl opened her eyes wide because she did not expect something like this in her shelter. She became wary because she thought she heard some noise and stood up sharply. Unexpectedly, if a voice sounded from an incomprehensible direction, it remained and addressed her. As it turned out, the girl was on the ceiling of the building and was slowly falling down while Ling was perplexed about what was happening. In a seductive voice she asked why the girl was not yet sleeping at this time, because children who stay late are bad. Ling heard these words, she was scared to death and screamed loudly. Baya put her finger to her mouth and motioned for her to be quiet. At some point, Baya's entire body ended up right on the bed, restricting the girl's movements. The woman said that next time she would punish the bad girl who does not sleep at night and told her not to be afraid. She can think of it as a dream because when she wakes up nothing will happen. As a result, she sat down on the bed and pressed the girl with her body. She said that next time she will punish the bad girl who is still awake and told her not to be afraid because she can think of it as a dream and when she wakes up nothing will happen. Her eyes turned red again, and she said that this smell of magic was incredible and warned that she would be gentle. Ling was still perplexed by what was happening. At some point, she wondered if her older sister was this vampire and tried to restore her, but it was in vain. At some point, she felt something strange because she was surprisingly comfortable. The girl wondered what her sister did. After that, Ling fainted, and Baya stood up and said that the taste of magic is indeed different. At the same time, her hair became silver again. At some point, she suggested that if she repeated the process of extracting magical energy and replenishing spiritual energy, it might improve her body. She looked at the girl and wondered if this seemed too exciting. Very soon it became morning and a light touch from a butterfly woke up the girl. Ling slowly opened her eyes and began to look around. "I don't understand what's going on," she exclaimed loudly, still trying to find her mentor. At some point she lay down on the bed embarrassed and said that it was just a dream and wondered how she could see something so strange. Very soon the day has come. There was a wonderful atmosphere in the building, but no one expected it to deteriorate so quickly. Jiang Fan, Nai Luo and Ling gathered in one room. Nai Luo asked her master if he really wanted her to come down from the, in her words, crazy mountain. Jiang Fan said that lately he has not been calm and his vision shows that little to you, not in the south. This room seems to be a demonic cult and asked why don't the two of them check it out. However, after this, Nai Lo asked with indignation why she could not complete the mission alone. Ling Er would create nothing but problems. Jiang Fan slightly opened his eyes and said that he forgot what he said here. It just seemed like the man was saying that she had to learn to control herself and said that she shouldn't get angry over trifles. Nai Luo turned around and said that she was bored, and the restless Ling Er looked at her master and turned to him. Jiang Fan waved his hand and said to go ahead and not worry. Ling Er ran to the exit and asked the fourth student to stop. The fourth Ling Er said right away that she would not care so much about the master, and when the time came she would have nothing to do with her, she would not care whether she was dead or not. Ling Er was very surprised by this, but agreed with the girl's demand. Very soon the girls found themselves in the middle of a destroyed settlement that was still burning. At some point on the fourth, Ling Er asked if she could talk to someone and asked what happened. One of the locals said that they were demonic cultivators. He explained that a group of people who called themselves the Demon Refinement sect suddenly appeared in their village about a few days ago. He said that after the looting of the village, all the young girls and children were seen while the man could not do anything. He also said that these people can use techniques and they, ordinary people, have no way to resist, and his little daughter was captured and now her fate is unclear. Suddenly, Nai Luo took on a serious expression and asked if they really called themselves that. Ling Er noticed the change in the girl's mood and asked what was going on. That same passerby said that this was indeed true and he heard it with his own ears. After this, Nai Luo asked where the sect had gone and where the captives had been taken. Immediately after this, she asked if the leader looked like a zombie and wore a purple outfit. And the man said that there were about 30 or 40 of them. Among them there was a man in purple diving and they headed east. After that, Nai Luo smiled as if she had learned something really worthwhile. Ling Er was still standing in a stupor and trying to ask her partner what was going on. However, the girl activated her fire form and said that this information was enough for her and asked Ling Er to stay here and look after the villagers. Ling Er tried to stop her partner because she said that she should not be impulsive and it was dangerous to go alone. However, Nai Luo was adamant and said that she did not need her to worry about her because in any case she should stay here and wait for her return. Immediately after this, the fourth student rushed to the east where the robbers were spotted. The girl was literally furious because she understood that this was the same sect for purifying the demon. At the same time, the villagers finally realized that the two who arrived and already one ex-girlfriend were immortal and began to pin their hopes on poor Ling Er. They begged for help while the girl stood in a stupor. Suddenly, a villager called the girl and began to beg her. He was supporting another man, who was clearly badly injured. He instantly bowed to the girl or begged her to save his uncle. The girl silently looked at everything that was happening and understood that if help was not provided now, then most likely this person would die. At the same time, the man who brought his uncle and began to calm the wounded man says that the immortal is here and he is saved. At the same time, the girl remembered what people had told her before for her own safety. She remembered the expression on her master's face as he told her to never use magic in front of others. Immediately after this, she remembered the disapproving glances of passers-by, who realized that the girl belonged to a magical tribe and ultimately remembered that same sect elder. The uncle, at the same time, did not see that the girl would help him and said that in this world there is no such kind immortal and dying to protect the village would be an excellent option because it means that he did not live his life in vain. His acceptance began to beg Ling Er to save the man in this way, but the girl still doubted it. Immediately after this, literally the entire settlement began to beg the girl to do this until she could not decide what to do because she did not know the spells yet, and Jiang Fan told her never to use magic in front of others. Nevertheless, she looked at the dying resident and understood that this man was seriously wounded and if she did not help him, then something irreparable could happen. Ultimately, Ling Er made up her mind and mentally apologized to the master. She understood that she simply could not stand by and watch someone die and used a healing spell. When she finished her spell, the man still did not regain consciousness, and she began to worry. She wondered why magic took longer than usual and wondered if it was due to lack of practice lately. At the same time, the rest of the villagers understood that it was becoming better for the man to bless the girl differently. However, What no one knew was that all these actions were observed by a certain crow, who knew everything and just watched him in silence. Having seen enough, she spread her wings and flew away from the village while everyone, the residents, began to thank the girl. As it turned out, this raven began to fly through many tangled forests. At some point, painfully, he stopped and caught the man's seemingly iron hand. A certain man smiled maliciously and laughed. Near him were many more secretive people who looked like killers, and the man himself said that they would have a good catch. At the same time, something strange fell off in an unknown cave. Things took a very dangerous turn, which could not have been more frightening. As it turned out, a special settlement was built there. However, it was completely unusual because it consisted of slaves and cages for prisoners and slaves. Some counted all the women who were kidnapped from the village while the girls tried to save their relatives and the mothers of their children. The man who counted them on his fingers smiled and said that this time the harvest would be greater than expected, and the patriarch would definitely give several more strong techniques. At some point, the man put his hand inside the cage and approached the girl. Taking her chin, he told her to worry because they would have fun with her very soon. The girl herself literally cried and could not do anything in response. All these women were extremely scared and begged for someone to come and help them. However, suddenly the men felt something was wrong and opened their eyes wide. Before he had time to turn around, he heard and saw a huge explosion that split the ceiling of the cave. Covering his face with his hands, he wondered what was happening and who came. As it turned out, Nilo had invaded the cave and cultivators, or rather thieves, had already begun to meet her. The girl narrowed her eyes and said that it was good that she was not late yet. At the same time, members of the wrong school asked who she was and forgot something at the demon purification school. The girl squinted and began to look around as if looking for someone. The man became even more angry as they began to ignore him and immediately made a decision. He told all his subordinates to bring her and pointed to her. Tomorrow, after this, many cultivators surrounded the girl, who stood in place, more than confident that this did not portend any danger for her. One of the students asked if she was really a person, realizing that this was not the case at all. At the same time, his comrade said that regardless of whether she is a person or not, she is still beautiful, and as soon as they catch her, they can have fun with her. Nai Luo closed her eyes and concentrated the energy into her fingers. She said that you are just a bunch of people and wondered how they even have the right to call themselves a demon purification school. The other students did not understand at all what she was going to do and clearly did not appreciate her, trying to deal with her as quickly as possible. Without thinking twice, the students directed their attacks to the sides. The girl who did not even flinch and continued to charge energy. Is it true? At some point she stopped and snapped her fingers. Immediately after this, all the students around her were covered in a huge dome of flame, which could not help but harm them. After that, the burned corpses began to fall down, and the girl with her face expressing nothing told them to return to the ground. The same leader who ordered his subordinates to attack the girl stood in a stupor and could not do anything. He still couldn't believe that she was a high-ranking demon. At the same time, the fourth Ling heir was not going to waste her time on something so useless and just hit the man on the back of the head, instantly knocking him out. However, while the man was falling unconscious, he kept remembering some patriarch. Passing through many corpses, the girl wondered if she really was a demon. Very soon she stopped near one of the tool and with her own strength began to stroke the bare metals. Opening the door to one of the prisons, she said that everything was in order now and she would return the woman home. However, what no one expected was the fact that the mothers and girls were so broken that they did not even pay attention to the arrival of the new girl. Nai Luo herself was very surprised and wondered if they had really begun to fear her since she is a demon, and thought that it would be a good decision to bring a student here. She was about to turn back and said that they could stay here, and she would return to the village, when someone decided to warn the girl herself and say that there was another person here. With teary eyes, she said that there was an even more terrible person who had not yet appeared. Nai Luo was perplexed as to who she was talking about, completely unaware that the mysterious silhouette was behind her. However, at some point, Nai Luo felt the presence of something else behind her and opened her eyes wide in surprise. Without thinking twice, she unleashed all her power in a powerful attack from behind. Such a strong attack spread across a very large arena and simply could not help but hit its target. The girl narrowed her eyes and said that she couldn't believe it at all. At the same time, the very person who was behind her looked suspiciously similar. He smiled and said to see who is here. The man with half of his face burned said that a lot of time had passed, calling her Little Nai. This person was the patriarch of the demon refinement sect. At the same time, this same man clenched the girl's fist and uttered a soul extermination technique. With a maniacal smile, he said not to look at him so disrespectfully and charged his next attack. Thanks for a while. The spell ended. Mileage, it's better to have a sweaty face and say that the healing is complete. She wiped her brow and said it was all over. The same man who was the first to be healed said that her mercy was very great and they simply could not pay for it. However, if she wanted something, she would try to do everything for her in the village. The girl was confused and said that there was no need for this because they didn't come here for that. The embarrassed villager told her to then tell her which school she was from. The girl doubted whether she should really say the name of the school. Remembering that the master did not tell her not to talk about school, she smiled softly. With a slight curtsy, she said that she was the youngest student in the Heavenly Soul School. The villagers looked at each other and repeated the name of the school. Having remembered this name, they began to thank the girl again. The cat politely refused and said that it was time for her to go. She understood that the village was now in a stable condition and she must immediately meet with her sister. After that, she took the next step and left the square in search of her sister. At the same time, she didn't expect that a pair of red eyes were watching her right now. These eyes belonged to the very raven who was watching all this. Very soon, very loud sounds were heard from that cave and air vibrations could be felt. From the hole one could hear and see two competitors fighting each other. These rivals were Nai Luo and the school's mentor. The girl asked if he was really so persistent because even such severe wounds did not kill him. The man said he didn't think he should hear this in person from someone who burned him to death on her own. He said that he did his best to raise her, but she ended up hurting the hands that fed her. From such a statement, the girl was even more upset and asked if he really called education when he threw her into a cauldron for a demon so that she would be a nanny and fight 100 monsters at night. The man laughed loudly and said that he missed the province where these demons were everywhere. Sadly realizing that the years were passing so quickly, he said that the demonic race had long disappeared, and without demon souls as food, he would not be able to cultivate the murderer skill he created. The man smiled even more disgustingly and said that he could only compensate for this with human souls and clenched his fist in his hands. The girl instantly realized that all those lights that she had just seen were human souls. At that time, more of these purple balls appeared in the air, and Nai Luo became angry and said that he was a sick bastard. With rage, she asked if so many innocent souls had to die for something like this. However, the man, without stopping to smile, said that a lot of people would have to die for this and she could be sure that she would soon join him. Smiling maniacally, he again called the girl's name. Without thinking twice, he lunged towards her, delivering a serious blow. The man licked his lips and said that she is the greatest masterpiece in all his days of tempering demons and the only phoenix cat demon in this world. If he receives her soul, he will become much stronger. The girl said that in this case she simply had to thank him. Nai Luo said that the current she is not the same little demon girl. After that, she dealt a serious blow to the man. The man himself was very surprised when he saw the color. It was a blow because it meant that she had mastered the technique of golden and blue yin. The man could not believe that something like this could end up in the hands of this little girl. He wondered how Nai Luo was able to master the power of the phoenix because she was just a low grade. At the same time, the girl said that she was more than just a hybrid. After that, she made a dash towards him and was about to strike. Nai Luo said that she is the only demon cat in the world with 9 lives and the raging blood of the phoenix. With a very strong blow, she literally pinned the man to the wall. Without thinking twice, she landed on the ground again and began to examine the crater. However, immediately afterwards she heard a loud laughter and squinted her eyes. As it turned out, everything was not so simple. After all, even though the man came under a direct blow, not only did he survive, but he was practically not injured. He said that this was simply great news because the light had never seen anything like it. Smiling again, he said that no matter how much she claims this title, she still remains a simple demon. Immediately after this, the same purple souls were extracted from the corpses of his former comrades, which slowly flew to him. Unexpectedly for everyone, he began to form all these souls into one huge purple ball. The man said that no matter what kind of demon she is, in front of his demon suppression art, they will all die. At the same time, the girl was only feverishly trying to do something like counting. She understood that this was not at all a simple task to withstand this man's blow and did not really know what to do. Immediately after the man finished his spell, he pointed at the girl and told her to die. Without giving up, or at least making some kind of effort not to give up, the girl also formed her own sphere of energy and directed the beam towards him, thus two powerful forces collided in one resistance. It was obvious that their strengths were quite similar, and at first the fourth linear even won. Due to this resistance, her opponent's energy beam split into several small beams that began to shoot randomly around. Then the girl finally understood what he was really up to. She turned back and realized that he didn't really want to hurt her at all, but to concentrate on something else. And this something turned out to be people captured in cages, who awaited their fate without protection. The same girl who warned about the danger only shouted that she did not want such a death at all, would lie and look at the immortal. The girl clenched her teeth and cursed at herself. She decided not to resist this beam of energy and headed straight into the cage. At some point, she blocked the cells with her body and was going to protect them. Realizing that the girl was sacrificing herself for everyone else, the little girl told her that she really didn't need to do that. However, despite these words, Nai Luo turned back and smiled softly. A moment later there was a huge explosion. As soon as the man saw such a reaction, he almost laughed. Ultimately, he could not contain his laughter and said that he knew that she would do this, and laughed at the fact that the demon was ready to sacrifice himself for the sake of ordinary people. He eventually called out her very first name, Naira, and said that she was a demon cat, which itself was a rare species from ancient times, and he would pacify her even with her new power. However, something happened that no one expected. The man opened his eyes wide when he saw this. He noticed that there was a strange formation with a shield in front. As it turned out, in front of the fourth student was Ling, who formed this formation and held it tightly. The girl turned back and said that she had come to help. Ling, barely able to stand on her feet, said that she didn't need to worry, it would be much better and she would leave one while everyone else began to worry about her. The same girl who was saved and studied turned back and tried to support her. The girl herself said that everything was fine and it was just a minor injury. She understood that even though Ling helped block most of the blow, it was still too strong. However, immediately after that, she looked at her opponent and realized that he was not even scratched. The fourth sister understood that Ling could not cope with him now and asked what they should do. At the same time, the man understood that if Ling calls Nai Luo the fourth sister, then most likely she is also a very light person and quite possibly even stronger than herself. The man remembered how a guy came to him that day. He was a simple person even without the flow of spiritual energy. Jang Fan slowly walked into the hall despite the monster pipes behind him. The man swung his fist and opened your eyes. The man understood that as soon as they started fighting you, he immediately lost consciousness, and this girl was definitely not easy, you had to be careful with her. At the same time, the man immediately noticed the girl's golden hair and wondered if she was from the west. At the same time, Ling tried to drive away and asked if the fourth sister was okay. However, very soon she felt the very presence of the enemy and turned her head. I'll go. After that, she took on a serious look and began to look at him intently. The machine understood that next time he would not soon encounter such a harmful demonic creature, and he had no idea how much time would pass, but nevertheless, he understood that he could not miss her and wondered if she would agree to the deal. At the same time, in Ling head, she panicked with all her might and understood that even the fourth sister had lost to him and her strength would clearly not be enough. Unexpectedly, astonishingly, the man laughed. He put his hand over his mouth and said that at the moment he believed that if they continued to fight, they would lose, and asked why not. He had already said there that he could allow him to leave, but only if they did not investigate today's incident, because after all, he still remembered their master. At the same time, Ling said that it was good if he remembered their master and understood that in this way they could stay for a while. However, Nai Luo quickly sensed something was wrong and shuddered. Nai Luo's premonition turned out to be true, as the man immediately smiled and began his follow-up attack. I understand what he is going to do, the fourth sister told Ling and run. While Ling slowly turned her head, there was already a man behind her, swinging at her head. Fourth sister said that he was deceiving her. Ling only noticed at the very last moment that she was under attack. Naturally, Without having time to react, she found herself nailed to the wall. "I'll come." Nai Lo looked at the crater in a stupor and with wide eyes called the name of her partner. The man approached the girl and said that he thought she was a tough girl, but I didn't think that she would actually be just a bluffing fool. After that, he threw chains on Nai Lo and said that now no one would interfere with them. He will come. However, an unexpected girl heard a spell being cast, which indicated that Ling was still alive. The girl was charging her technique through her smoke and the silhouette of the spell was just beginning to be visible. A little beaten, she stretched her hands forward and charged the equipment. With a serious look, she asked the gods for the power capable of melting everything. Charge up another attack that looked like a fiery lion. She thought that she would never allow her elder sister to be offended again. At the same time, the man would just look at this attack and say that it was a waste of time. With a slight movement, he immediately destroyed this attack and did not leave it. "I'll come." Ling, when she saw such a letter, could not help but be surprised because it was simply impossible. The man was extremely angry and said that for this she would have to replace this damned master. Taking a leap forward, he said that he would teach them a good lesson. Nai Luo, barely conscious, looked at Ling and could not kill a word. Ling bravely repelled all of her opponent's attacks, but it was obvious that she was losing. Nai Lo literally cried because she already roughly understood what all this was fraught with. When Ling returned with me from the man's strong attack, she was still looking at her friend's back. She was on the verge of tears and just wondered what she was doing. Ling charged her technique again and prepared to repel the blow. At the same time, she remembered the times when she trained with the master. At some point, Jiang Fan asked if she knew what the most powerful source of power in the world was. The girl did not want to answer this question and said that if a man has time to chat about them, then it would be better if he taught her a few more techniques. However, Jiang Fan only tapped it and said that he had already repeated many times that real strength has nothing to do with technique. Smiling softly, the man said that just hating will not change anything, and only when she sees that the sea is doing everything to protect her loved ones, something will change and she will understand his words. Finally waking up from such a depressed state, she opened her eyes wide as if she realized something. Next to her was a girl who was saved by a huge explosion, and who, even though she was in despair, still rooted for Ling. Nai Luo again looked at the battle from the side, unable to move an inch. At some point, she noticed that Ling shield was cracked and she was in a helpless state. As soon as the shield was destroyed, the man attacked her again and a huge explosion occurred. However, it turned out that he attacked Nai Lo, who stood in front and said that she finally remembered. The girl said that before they left, Jiang Fan ordered her to guard her. Ling was very surprised that this actually happened. At some point, she hardly asked her if she was hurt, despite the fact that it was obvious that she herself was much more injured. Ling said that she was fine because she just ran out of mana. However, she was worried that she couldn't even cast a simple healing spell due to lack of mana. Nai Luo wiped the blood from her mouth and said that it was not a problem at all and was just a small scratch. The girl said not to misunderstand everything, because the reason why she will protect her is all because of the instructions of the main character, and she does not want this at all. Immediately after this, Ling rushed into her arms and they were very surprised. Nai Lo said that she did a good job and now it's her turn. Suddenly listen to the voice of that same man. He said that even though their bodies are weakened, the two of them are one step away from death. Smiling again and opening his mouth, he charged up another attack and told them to be good girls and die. For now, she told the students not to worry about her older sister, because she's getting excited about it. She folded her hands again and began to curse the master. The girl changed the color of her flame and said that she understood a little of what he told her then. Immediately after this there was a huge explosion. Ling looked at her sister and once said she wasn't looking at you, but she can do everything there herself, jumped. Immediately after this there was a huge explosion that covered the entire cave. The man, already foretelling his victory, laughed loudly and said that now they will know what will happen if they go against his school. However, unexpectedly, after this task, the question sounded in a confident voice without any pain in it, and the man opened his eyes wide. Nai Luo appeared to completely block this explosion and said that this time he would be disappointed. The man understood that the shiny red mogu that looks like the sun is the purest fire of the phoenix from the legend. After that, he screamed in disbelief at how much it was simply impossible that some demon could awaken him. Nai Luo herself was surprised at her strength and realized what Jiang Fan was really talking about when he told her to control her anger. The man made the fish aside and told it to die. However, Nai Luo didn't even flinch and just pointed her finger at the man. As it turned out, a small shred of energy had formed at its tip. However, very soon this concentrated fire turned into a phoenix and could not help but inflict the form on its subscriber. Very soon a man with half-torn clothes and numerous wounds on his body. Unable to stand, he flopped onto his lap. He opened his eyes wide and couldn't believe what was happening. From such an explosion, a small boat was formed and Nai Lo, together with Ling approached it. With a neutral expression on her face, a girl approached him and said that this was still good. She looked at her former mentor and didn't know what to say, so she remembered the moment when they had just met and she was dying. She still remembered these moments when he treated the girl herself, who did not trust anyone. Also memorable were the memories of being fed by her. It was impossible to forget her first calm spring where, due to a lack of common sense, she almost fought with red flowers. One cannot help but forget about the first one, where she, like a small child, looked around in search of something amazing. However, there was also a dark side to this coin. She remembered how they ended up in some cave, and the man opened some kind of technology. However, it was obvious that he could not cope with it and it ended up consuming his mind. As a result, the man literally threw his student into the abyss in order to sell her by force. This betrayal came as a shock to Nai Lo, who believed her master until the last. The man also couldn't help but remember these memories. He barely opened his eyes. He saw the girl squeezing his throat and saying that she had already tried to kill him once, but this time they were really saying goodbye forever. He remembered the moment when the girl, tearful, did not know what to do with him and tried to help him in this way. The man eventually smiled softly and said that she had really grown up. Immediately after this, a giant pillar of fire appeared in the sky, indicating an enormous temperature. The girl was still above the man and lowered her head. With tears running down her cheeks, she said that she had repeated more than once that she was no longer the same person she was before. And at the happy ending of the story, all the prisoners were released. Ling was clearly confused by so many people and sought help from her sister, who was watching all this in the city. Nai Lo smiled radiantly at the girl, but began to sweat. And it's not for nothing that a second later, as if nothing had happened, she fainted. As soon as this happened, Ling and that same little girl were completely in order to help her, but nevertheless it was a happy ending. At the same time, the same blue butterfly flew into the school residence. Jiang Fan, together with Baya, watched everything that was happening and asked a little whether the problem had finally been solved. The man said that the problem was almost solved, but he could not resist and used teleportation. The man motioned for her to leave and said he had something to sort out. At the same time, I remembered the very stone that they had seen then. Suddenly, from these days, a hand with a strange symbol appeared. From there came the same occultist who cursed Nai Lo and with her school. Concentrating, he said that he needed to choose a new place to collect as many souls as possible. However, unexpectedly, someone offered the man a helping hand. Without thinking about it for long, he grabbed that hand and thanked the man. However, the realization finally came to him that this was completely wrong, and he opened his eyes wide. In front of him was Jiang Fan, who was looking at him with the same gentle smile. The man was shocked and said that it was really him, and after thinking for a long time, Jiang Fan waved his hand and said that it was really him. After that, he took the stone from his hand and said that he really didn't expect the girls to face something like this right now. However, Jiang Fan understood that this was a good opportunity for them anyway, and most likely they just didn't train enough yet. Very soon night came. A blue butterfly flew into one of the buildings. From such sounds, the student woke up abruptly and slowly opened her eyes. She said that it hurt because the consequences of using excessive magical power are very unpleasant. Then she noticed that Nai Lo was sleeping on the edge of her bed. She noticed how she snored and easily named her. Hugging her legs, she said that she slept very quietly like that. However, suddenly an unfamiliar voice sounded in the room, saying that she had already woken up. I asked how she was feeling and if she had any pain. The girl was very surprised and even blushed when she saw the man. However, Jiang Fan told her to be quieter. More precisely, he didn't say it, but showed it with a gesture. He said that she lost consciousness due to depletion of magical power and all these days the girl took care of her. The man said don't wake her up and let her sleep a little. Jiang Fan patted Ling on the head and said that this was the first training trip to the mountains and they did well. However, the girl stammered and said that she did not keep her promise and used magic. However, Jiang Fan only touched her cheeks and called her a stupid girl. He smiled softly and said that she needed to remember what he was about to tell her. The man said that whether it be magic or martial arts, they should be used when she needs to protect something important to herself and she has not done anything wrong, and Jiang Fan is proud that he has a student like her. After that, they butted heads. Suddenly, at this moment, Nai Luo woke up and slowly opened her eyes. Having lost her voice, she, half asleep, could not make out what was happening. She finally came to her senses. She was very surprised and opened her eyes wide. Immediately after this, she fell into a stupor and did not understand anything. As if she was in a frying pan, she jumped up and shouted, "What are they doing now?" Jiang Fan smiled awkwardly and said that this was not what she thought at all and begged him to let her explain while Ling stopped the girl from burning her room down. Very soon morning came. Jiang Fan looked and said that there is definitely something in this stone, but despite that, it has not made any progress after such a long time. Jiang Fan therefore, he decided to go out and ask Yi Luo if she was a master of such things. I drank it away. Very soon the grandmother's hero approached the girl's residence. The machine understood that every time he visited her refuge, he felt a little strange. With his eyebrows furrowed, he began to hear voices in the building that said that the third sister was going to do something strange with the student. Unable to bear it, Jiang Fan abruptly went to the entrance and opened the door with a roar. He told her not to give her younger sister these herbs because she might not be able to withstand them since she is very weak. At the same time, the woman said that she just wanted to confirm the effectiveness of it. However, he came in at the most inconvenient moment, when they were almost completely naked and covered only with towels. From such an awkward silence, absolutely everyone froze. The first to react was Ling, who screamed loudly and blushed. Immediately after this, she hid in the water again, not wanting to show her curves. Still blushing, she asked why Jiang Fan was here. Jiang Fan turned around and said that he was here to discuss something with her elder sister. He coughed again and asked if he had told her, and he told her that Tanya should give medicine to the younger one. However, the girl picked up some water with leaves. Third sister said that this was an ordinary medicinal bath to help the younger sister alleviate the effects of magical exhaustion. When the man heard this excuse, he suddenly ran out and took off his swimsuit and said that he would return later. Very soon the girls were put in order, and Jiang Fan sat in front of them while Shi Luo combed the youngest's hair. The eldest asked if Jiang Fan meant the very stone that was commemorated. Jiang Fan said that this was indeed the case and showed this stone. He also said that he looked through all the books, but could not find any clues and asked what she knew about it. Shi Luo approached him and asked him to give her the opportunity to look at the pebble. After looking at it, the girl said that the engraving here looks very old and is straight from the Na-Ancient period. However, Ling unexpectedly came into the conversation and said that this stone gave her some kind of unfamiliar feeling and asked if she could touch it. There is clearly concern for her safety. Jiang Fan thought about it, but made his decision. He handed the girl a pebble and told her to be careful and stop as soon as she felt something was wrong. The girl looked carefully at this stone and said that she understood everything. She slowly began to extend her hand. Just as he was about to touch the stone, he suddenly turned black and began to tremble. Immediately after their collision, two different energies seemed to burst out. After this, the stone broke into splinters and only some part of the energy was visible, which was trying to explode. Ling covered her ears with her hands because in front of her was some kind of real topic. However, Jiang Fan did not lose his head and made a sharp wave of his hand. Thus, in one movement he got rid of the demon, and the girl was able to calmly open her eyes. Very soon, fragments of stone lay on the ground and Ling backed away. She didn't realize what had just happened and was scared. Jiang Fan said that there was a remnant of some other spirit about this stone and he felt the energy from her body. The man said that it still meant something. However, before Jiang Fan finished speaking, Baya came into the room. They simultaneously said that someone had his eye on the younger sister. The main thing is to immediately notice the girl's arrival and ask if she found out something like that while Ling was still dying, what they just said. And the girl said that Jiang Fan asked her to research the origin of this stone and said that there is no specific information yet, but she has collected some other news. She said that the 30-year secret realm would open and all the young cultivators below the Void Realm could take part in it. She also said that this time, the Eastern Palace and the Royal Pavilion, together with the Genyu sect, will jointly hold a big tournament. At the same time, Shi Luo asked if they were big schools in other regions and asked why they were here. Baya said that this is all because a stone called Heavenly was recently found in the southern region, and even an ordinary cultivator can use this stone to quickly increase motivation and naturally people will strive for it. The girl said that this time the prize for the winner of the tournament was that same heavenly stone. Lin Er turned away and said that in any case this stone was sealed. Jiang Fan patted the girl on the head and said that everything was fine. The man said that she had nothing to fear. It was not Jiang Fan who solved this problem. After that, he leaned over and said that in any case, she would have started with you only now, and judging by this method, the level of motivation is really below the level of emptiness. After that, the man said that he would take her to the secret place of the girl. After some time, the realization of what was happening finally dawned on her, and she screamed loudly. There was a pleasant atmosphere in the valley. It was said that this year the secret realm is indeed a place of heavenly pride, and if this is true, then is it possible that the great student of the school, who has been imprisoned for many years, is coming out of seclusion. It was said that in the Eastern Emperor Pavilion there had finally appeared a genius capable of holding the bell in the Eastern Emperor, which is the treasure of the sect, while the others just wanted to see the legendary Misty Immortal. At the same time, Jiang Fan and her student were sitting at a nearby table, waiting for their food. Ling Er asked if people were really discussing the enemy they would meet. The man said that this time he was taking her to the mountain with him to investigate the case of the heavenly stone, and on the other hand, it was to test the result of her cultivation. Nevertheless, the man said he doesn't worry, because everything is in the hands of the master and it's clear that she can just say what you want. Ling Er smiled radiantly and said that the master is better. Blushing, she said that this was the first time she had dyed her hair and she had a very strange feeling. At the same time, Jiang Fan remembered how Shi Luo carefully removed her hair color and said that white hair suited her very well. She said that this was necessary so that people's eyes, after all, after the Congress, the whole world would know that his school had accepted a sorceress. However, the girl was afraid that they would call her this and said that only the best magicians were worthy of it and she was not even close to them. The man said that immortals do not care about this and treat any person from the west as savages, when suddenly he heard some kind of scream. The man turned and asked what was going on. As it turned out, the genius of the Eastern Pavilion was pursuing someone. Taking a closer look, people realized that this was the legendary thief Ing Chushue. The girl said that stalkers like the girl's younger brother are hated the most. After that, she sprayed the country with pink powder and came off even more. However, this powder didn't really stop the guy, and he just thanked him for the advice. Smiling, he said that he was very sorry that the girls greatly underestimated him. When the girl saw how easily he freed himself from this, she just turned around and continued to run away. At the same time he stopped and said to stop this performance. However, Ing Chushue herself did not expect that she would be attacked from above. She quickly stopped and pulled the trigger back just enough to avoid the phantom swords. Someone sat down on the roof of the house and said that if a man knew at least a little about women's hearts, then he would not have to retire for so many years. As it turned out, it was the same legendary immortal Feng Yu. When Ing Chushue offended her, she clicked her tongue because she realized that what she did was bad. The man slowly approached her and said that if she voluntarily handed over the red lotus of pure fire, then he was willing to protect her from death as the young master of the Eastern Pavilion. The girl looked forward and began to think about it. As it turned out, Feng Yu thought that the man simply did not want to fight with such a beautiful girl, so she said that she would do everything for him. She pointed many swords towards the girl. She eventually started dodging everyone. Ling Er, watching this battle, asked why they were fighting. With a soft smile and an unsuspecting face, he said that he himself had no idea how at the same moment the entire table with his food was turned over. The girl got even more scared and asked what was happening here. Suddenly, Ing Chushue grabbed Ling Er's sword. Without hesitation, she asked to lend her sword. Turning around, she said that she would return it later. After that, she made a dash forward and broke away from her pursuers while Ling was sad because it was the first sword that the master gave her before leaving the mountains. Feng Yu resisted the thief's blow. She didn't expect that she would have the strength to resist. After that, the girl thanked the main character and said goodbye. Spent it. She of course. Jiang Fan grabbed her shoulder. With a soft smile, he stopped her and asked if she knew the saying debt meets payment. After that, he pointed his fingers at the girl's forehead and charged the technique. He smiled and said that since she borrowed his student's sword, she must leave something behind. Immediately after this, he tore the girl's outer clothing, revealing a humanoid fox underneath. Many people did not expect such a turn of events and began to be surprised that Ing Chushue was actually a demon fox. As it turned out, the girl knew the main character and only blushed and cursed him. In the end, she threw something on the floor and spread the pink one and said that she would show him later. It was with this action that Lin began to cough and asked the main character to wait. After that, Dong Huan approached them and said that he was a student of the Eastern Pavilion and the red lotto that was with them today was once the prizes of the secret kingdom that was stolen by the thief that caused him this farce. The man said that he was grateful for the help and asked what Jiang Fan was going to think about how the pure day lotus became. Jiang Fan introduced himself and said that this trivial matter should be returned to the original owner. Dong Huan immediately realized who was in front of him and began to judge him according to rumors. Jiang Fan said that it is simply a matter of teaching people what they want to learn, and if the young master thinks that Barbara is full of uncivilized barbarians, then he has nothing to say. However, the guy said that in any case they are people since they do not have 3 heads and 6 arms and said that she admires his courage when they challenged the whole world and openly opposed the arrogant school of truth. Jiang Fan said that he left the student at school and decided to take another on a trip so that she would learn more about the world, and unfortunately the events of the secret kingdom had not yet begun. Her sword had already disappeared. And he said that it was fate that they met like this, so he offered a little of his hospitality and a new sword from his collection. Jiang Fan smiled and said that since the young master invited him, it would be impolite to refuse and asked the girl to say hello to the elders. After this there was an awkward silence as the girl did not know what to do. Very soon, she leaned down respectfully and said that her name is Lin Luer and she has been training with the ball at school for 3 years, so she hopes that she will be given more instructions in the future. Guy he is a plus and said that since such a thing, he and Feng Yu should have a lot in common while the gloomy girl appeared from behind him. As a result, she pulled him by the ears, and they began to play around until Jiang Fan said that since he saw a beautiful girl, they immediately felt better, so they need to continue on their way. They ended up continuing their conversations about schools. However, no one expected that someone was watching these people. The elder said that he did not expect that he would contact the Eastern Emperor Pavilion and the other Piamiao Pavilion so quickly. After that, he asked a certain Tianji what he thought about it and whether there was a secret threat to the master. A certain man smiled and said that except for a girl named Feng Yu who is quite interesting, everyone else is mediocre. He said that below the realm of emptiness there is no one under the sky who could defeat him. Very soon night came. Our company was talking at the evening table. Jiang Fan said that it is not surprising that the two of them are here now. The guy said that it was simply because this time the entrance to the secret realm happened to be on the premises of the Jang school. However, immediately afterwards he asked about the rumors. Feng Yu probably understood her youngest, but decided to paraphrase him. She bowed respectfully and said that this school is famous and they all know how it is, so they can directly rest assured that the Piamiao Pavilion and the Eastern Pavilion are not on their side. The girl said that their rumors, and the reciprocity between them and the leader of the school, really makes you think. Jiang Fan suddenly reached for Lin Luer's mug of alcohol and said that it was just out loud and he shouldn't take it. Taking the alcohol from his student, he said that it was a great honor for him to meet both of them, so he would drink to it. The girl pouted because she didn't understand why the man was treating her like a child. After that, he calmly dropped the alcohol under Lin Luer's persistent gaze. At the same time, Feng Yu understood that she did not feel the energy from this person emanating from the whole body, so he must be at the maximum at the body hardening stage except for one possible option. However, Dong Huan interrupted the girl's train of thoughts and suggested that they all get drunk. The girl said that if he gets drunk with it this time, she will not take it to his room. Meanwhile, the same Bilitis was watching all this. Watching this wonderful dinner, she just cursed. She didn't understand how Jiang Fan could contact this bunch of scoundrels. She put her mask back on her face. She understood that she had to take the lotus back tonight, otherwise everyone she knew might encounter bad things and things would happen. At the same time, Jiang Fan asked why they decided to take part in this event. Feng Yu said that this guy had just finished his seclusion and she decided to invite him to find out more there, and recently, with the emergence of a secret kingdom in the southern region, a special natural treasure called the Heavenly Stone appeared, so they are here. Jiang Fan understood that the Heavenly Stone that emerged from the secret realm was news that had spread to other regions and wondered who was behind it. However, unexpectedly they heard other voices where a man was asking if the girl would come to his room today. They turned and looked at the newcomers, but said nothing. This same man said to wait until the elder finished his business. After that, he turned to Dima and asked how the work entrusted to him was going. Space push. The guy immediately took on a serious look and scratched his ear. The man said that the lotus could be returned to its owner, but he should not forget what he promised. After that, he held out this very flower. At the same time, Ing Chushue, who was watching everything that was happening, realized that she had become time. Tianji said not to worry because Feng always keeps his word and tomorrow he will give them the heavenly stone. After this, he turned and asked who the new arrivals were. The guy said that these were friends whom they had just met and that without their help they would not have been able to return the lotus so quickly. Tianji looked at the main character and only said that he felt a little more clear. Dong Huang turned his head, signaling the man not to do anything. Tianji walked past him and said that he thought this Taoist friend was a little familiar to him. Pressing his shoulder with force, he said that it seems to him that a few days ago we were visited by Ascension and there was a white-haired practitioner in white clothes who entered into a fight with the head of his clan. With a gloomy expression on his face and a slight smile, he asked if anyone had any idea who it was. Jiang Fan said that his sect master should be Zheng Yi. Introduced himself as Jiang Fan said that he had already met him once. The man suddenly realized that he was the one who openly accepted the barbarians. The man understood that this blow was completely enough to crush gold and stone, but he was indifferent and most likely he is a physical practitioner. The man said that as they say, they should be merciful where possible and the masters at the Ascension Convention are only representatives and later all the sects came to a consensus that until Jiang Fan appears again, their sect cannot be held responsible. However, he did not expect that Jiang Fan would decide to visit him personally. He came close to his face and said that it was really difficult for him to be so kind. However, suddenly everything in the building went out, and they began to look at each other. Tianji asked what was happening and why the lights went out while his companion was saying that she would find out now. However, before the girl had time to take a step, many sakura petals appeared from her back. Tianji clearly did not understand what was happening and what these petals were. At the same time, everyone else instantly realized that it was Ing Chushua's doing. Suddenly, the girl was behind Dong Huang, who didn't even notice it. She said that he was very tired and threw out some powder and told him to go to sleep. The legendary Cultivation was very frightened when he saw that the girl began to act on you. She made a sharp lunge back and was about to attack her. Making a sharp swing with her sword, she said to move away from him. After this the battle continued. Tianji was very angry and said to leave his lotus alone. She flew towards Ing Chushue. The girl deflected this plate with her own hat and lunged back. As a result, she ended up at the window opening. She thanked everyone for their kindness, but said that she had a lot of work to do right now, so she had to leave them. After that, the girl seemed to disappear into thin air and said goodbye. Very soon, only a few sakura petals remained at the sight of her disappearance. An angry Tianji told everyone to follow her. Everyone else took off, but Jiang Fan was in no hurry to do so. He said that he didn't expect this girl to be so persistent. Night soon fell, and Jiang Fan began to pursue the thief. She moved quite quickly. At the same time, Jiang Fan was thinking about why she was so obsessed with this lotus and why it became healthy. He remembered the times when he was much younger. He remembered how a certain fox stole meat from a store. The angry owner threw kitchen knives in her direction when she once stole his meat. He tried to catch up with the white fox and said that he would skin it if he caught one of these. At some point, the fox tripped. Nevertheless, she was more worried not even about herself, but about her meat. The owner told the main character, who approached the eyelash, to help him catch the fox. Jiang Fan slowly bent down in front of the little animal and picked it up. He said to leave this baby alone because he would buy meat. Jiang Fan wondered if after all this time she still couldn't get rid of her habit. Feng Yu was still chasing the girl and aimed her attacks at her. Jiang Fan did not resist this, but he was very surprised. Ing Chushua herself was also surprised by this coincidence and began to react to the attack. She swung her hand and many cherry blossom petals stopped the attack. Feng Yu understood that she was quite good at running and it was difficult to hit her from such a distance, and Jiang Fan at the same time asked what kind of red lotus of pure fire was this. The girl said that Tianji said that the red lotus of pure fire is a treasure that can only be obtained by extracting the essence of lava and earthly fire for 100 years, and this plant is a reward prepared by the Zheng sect for the winners of this secret realm. At the same time, Tianji began to catch up with Ing Chushua and shouted loudly. He said to place the secret treasure of the sect and then he would spare her life. The girl smiled and said to catch up with him and take him from her if he could. Unexpectedly for everyone, the girl's body seemed to begin to double. Feng Yu instantly realized that thanks to this technique, she was able to escape last time. Tianji clicked his tongue and realized that things were bad. He said that if these two helped him get the lotus flower, he would make sure that they were rewarded. The girl said that she was just annoyed by this girl because she was bullying Dong Huan again. Jiang Fan said that catching the thief is an easy task. As a result, they separated and each headed towards their phantom image. The fox looked at the pursuers and was going to make sure that no one followed her. Having disappeared, she said that she was safe for now. After that, she squeezed early on her stomach and said that she still had not recovered from the wound she received that morning. After that, she took out the lotus and smiled. She almost cried because she said that this lotus was finally here and everyone else would be saved. She concentrated and said that she didn't think that the pursuers along with the main character would be able to catch up with her in such a short time, but she didn't expect that certain forces were already on the way out. As soon as the girl left her place, she immediately ran into the main character. She was very surprised and could not believe what she had just seen. Jiang Fan grabbed her lotus and asked if she really wanted to do the same trick as before and just split up and run away. The girl cursed the main character and reached for the lotus. With tears in her eyes, she continued to curse him, trying to take the lotus. She told her to return her lotus and said that she did not have time for this. Jiang Fan said that if this is her own school of truth, then no matter how much she likes it, she cannot take this one away. However, the girl began to cry even more and said that this was not their lotus. The girl started pounding the protagonist's chest and said that this is the only lotus that Xiaohua and the others spent a decade cultivating and told him to give it away. Out of despair, she hung on him and said that this lotus looked like the cherry flower that he once gave her. She explained that lone demons could only cultivate in human form and only by relying on the precious treasures created by the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. She said that it was for this reason that they sadly hid and cultivated the lotus for so long. However, it was then that the conscience should have ripened and the worst happened. All the people from the school came and took their lotus. The girl with tears in her eyes said that if there was no lotus flower, then everyone else would die from exhaustion of spiritual power and begged him to give her the lotus. Jiang Fan said that taking away the hope of survival from a weak demon is really what famous sects do that claim to be fair. He handed her the lotus and said that time was running out so she should take it and leave and he would take care of the rest. The girl stuttered and told him not to think that she would thank him for this because she still remembers what he did. She raised her hand and repelled the nearest attack, saying that they should talk about the past another time. The guy stopped the mascot and said that they had another problem. In the distance stood the silhouette of a certain man. This man turned out to be Tianji, who said that he could not believe that Jiang Fan was in cahoots with them. The man said that then he will begin to do justice today. Night fell and great battles continued. Heated fought with the main character. Tianji said that Jiang Fan first accepts barbarians as disciples and then shelters this demon and said that the man is really going the wrong way. Jiang Fan said that he was very sorry that he could not compare with some clans that claim to be righteous, but secretly take away the weakest and abuse them. The man said that this fox had repeatedly stolen from his sect's territory and caused them a lot of harm, and it looks like Jiang Fan today he is determined to follow his own path and he will have to fight against him. However, Ing Chushua said that it was obvious that they were the ones who plundered themselves. She said she was simply returning what they stole to its rightful owner. The man laughed loudly and said that it was just some kind of joke. Tianji said that if it weren't for him, the cultivation of the rogue demon in the southern region, as well as some monsters like them, would have long ago gotten out of control and they just want fair rewards. Ultimately, he decided that there was no point in talking to him and said that you are the last time he shows mercy and said that if the main character leaves the fox, he will pretend that nothing happened. Jiang Fan opened his eyes and responded with the same words. However, Jiang Fan began to see something strange about this man. Through his eyes there was a feeling that there were some purple hands behind the man's back. Jiang Fan understood that this is the basis of that evil spirit, but the breath is much stronger than what it was last time. I really wondered if it could be that a part of an evil spirit was sealed in each of these stones and wondered what it was like to feel where it lived. He didn't wait long, but he exhaled and said that he then had no other choice. After this, he picked up the talisman and asked for forgiveness. However, suddenly someone stopped both opponents and told them to stop. This man turned out to be the very head of the sect. He was sharply lowered by his rivals. With black eyes, he told his subordinate that the guests came from afar and asked if he had not been taught how to treat guests when they come from afar. Tianji could not resist his master and only agreed with this. The elder said that a long time had passed and he did not expect to see him again after the Ascension convention. Jiang Fan said that there are simply pure and virtuous people among the demons, as well as among the barbarians from the west, and Jiang Fan does everything he can. The man said that maybe he misunderstood something, but he was not here to punish him. It was good that he had his own opinion about foreigners. However, he put on a serious expression and said that as they said, demons can also be evil and the demon fox who is behind him is a thief. The girl became very angry at this statement. Jiang Fan said that lonely demons live for you by absorbing heavenly spiritual energy and winter treasures and rarely harm people and do evil. He said that their school was taken away by a very important one and this was tantamount to the extermination of the entire clan and asked whether such an act was good or evil. The elder said that since ancient times, monks have endlessly fought for treasures and asked does Jiang Fan really want all the cultivators in the world to stop killing demons and stop opposing? On everything else, he added that during the East-West War, the southern region suffered from the possession of the nine-tailed fox and countless people were injured and killed. The man naturally asked what was so bad about him taking the red lotus of pure fire. However, Ing Chushue said that he limited himself not only to one nose, but also to the residents while Jiang Fan tried to calm her down. Jiang Fan asked if the lotus of pure fire was originally for the winner of the secret realm. The man agreed with this and asked what would happen from this then. Jiang Fan concentrated some particle of energy in his hands and directed it. As a result, this piece of energy ended up near Lin Luer and Dong Huang. Suddenly they both began to float, and Lin Luer herself was extremely surprised by the fact that she was flying. However, immediately after this, she catapulted towards the main character with a loud scream. The elder himself noticed this ray of light and looked up. As a result, the student found herself near her master. Jiang Fan introduced her and said that although she had just started training, she would take part in the Secret Realm event in order to test herself and become the final winner in this secret realm because there was no need to think about who would be the owner of the lotus. The girl was very surprised that Jiang Fan had such high hopes for her. However, the elder viewed this entire situation with great skepticism. He said that it is good for young blood to have such ambitions. Well, the secret realm is dangerous, and entering it with only the stage of energy purification is indeed very dangerous. Jiang Fan said not to worry about it because he will accompany her to the secret realm. The elder laughed and said that this was a very good joke, but the barrier would not let anyone in above the level of the void realm. Jiang Fan said that their stages were quite similar and asked why they could not recover to the secret realm. Suddenly, the elder opened his eyes wide as he finally understood the meaning of these dreams. He said that in fact he was probably joking because it couldn't be that he was getting out of his school while the future was at the stage of energy sensations. Jiang Fan said that in any case, this is his own business and as for the lotus of pure fire, he will keep it for himself because it was stolen from the lone demon clan and from their clan too, so now this lotus will be in his hands. The man asked whether the school and the walls would also participate in this and, if so, could the man think about a fair competition for gold or did he think that they need to decide everything here and now? She said that Jiang Fan had indeed given him a difficult task. Lin Luer immediately hid. The man said that in the end all people have their secrets. However, he could not say how strong Jiang Fan really was, but he understood that at this stage, going to the secret realms was tantamount to suicide. Tianji said that he would not refuse to compete for victory for the main character, because after all, he himself has not yet mastered the art of embodiment, and the lady does not understand these Western magical arts. The elder said that if he said so, he would wait until everything was decided in the secret realm in 3 days. He took on a serious look and looked at the main character. He said that he hoped that Jiang Fan would keep his word. Looking at their backs, Jiang Fan was glad that they had finally gotten rid of them. Jiang Fan said that it was already late today and he would go buy her a drink another time. Jiang Fan said that in this case, he needs to look for a place to stay. However, no one expected that they were being watched all this time. As it turned out, Feng Yu was the one who was watching them and realized that they really had an idea about their path. After that, she looked into the crow's eyes and thought deeply. She said she felt like her plan was finally ready to move to the next stage. Very soon the company found itself near a sakura tree. At the same time, the foxes were worried about their sister and wondered why even after a month she had not yet returned. Many began to doubt that she was truly alive while others tried not to think about it. However, absolutely everyone believed that she would definitely return the lotus. Suddenly, all the foxes turned in the direction of the entrance because they heard what it was. As it turned out, it was Ing Chushue who was behind the doorway. As soon as the fox saw her, they were extremely happy. They immediately gathered around her and asked if she managed to return the lotus while others were worried about her wounds. The girl asked for forgiveness, but said to be patient a little longer. She said that she would return the lotus soon. However, immediately after this she began to lose all knowledge. Right before the end, all she saw was the restless cries of her relatives. However, when she woke up, everything looked completely different and joyful foxes walked along what seemed to be a new area. The girl couldn't believe it because in one night this place had changed so much. He pinched her cheek and she wondered if she was sleeping. However, immediately after this, she saw a plate of medicine in front of her and the voice of the main character asked if she had finally woken up. After that, the man asked if she wanted to have a drink. At the same time, the girl asked how Jiang Fan found this place because she hid it. The man said that it would be strange to forget the cherry tree that he planted with her. Well, the man said that he simply chose the long way to get rid of unnecessary eyes. He said they simply didn't have time to look back as this tree grew to such proportions. Very soon, Ing Chushue's body was covered with those same petals, and she began to drink the medicine. After that, she turned out to be in completely different clothes and said that she was not ashamed to say after so many years that he returned to see her. Jiang Fan said that he is now beholden to the demon clan and if he had not been negligent, the Nine-Tails would not have ended up in this situation. The girl asked if he really felt it too, because Tianji had the energy of a nine-tailed face. Jiang Fan understood that this was all connected with the so-called heavenly stone. The man said that now all that remains is to wait a few days until everything becomes clearer. After this, the man turned again. Jiang Fan said that this lotus flower will be returned to its rightful owner. The man said that the vein in this swamp contradicts the spiritual root of the cherry blossom tree, so he will find a better place for it. The girl blushed and said that she understood and thanked him. Very soon, a mysterious purple scarf appeared in the sky. The head of the school, together with his subordinate, looked at everything that was happening. Very soon, other pavilion masters approached them and a certain man apologized for not greeting him last time and hoped that he would not be offended by this. Immediately behind him was Dong Huan. The man said that the master is very polite and this is the first time in recent decades that the two sects of the southeastern spiritual lands are cooperating with each other and this is of great significance. The man was about to burst into gratitude, but someone stopped him. A certain girl said that she was afraid that if things continued like this, the opening of the secret kingdom would have to be postponed even tomorrow. Behind her was Feng Yu. The woman looked down at the assembled crowd. She said that this secret kingdom seemed more interesting than she thought. She ended up looking at the main character, Lin Luer, Ing Chushue. Lin Luer was surprised because she understood that everyone looked so strong and this was the first time she had seen such a crowd of people. But she began to understand that most likely the news about the heavenly stone had leaked absolutely everywhere, and he noticed that many people have all the most mysterious stones as decorations. Very soon they climbed up on foot and made an appeal to all participants. They said that the fierce beasts, if an accident happens to them, they can use the jade tablet to teleport. The man said that the last person to leave the secret realm will be the final winner. When of course an unknown sound sounded, Jiang Fan and the thief immediately tensed up. Eventually the mountain split. The organizers announced that this mountain would ultimately belong to the winner, and there was a huge crystal there. As soon as the audience heard this, they began to praise the organizers. "I'll go." Jiang Fan and Lin Luer looked at it all with apathy. Jiang Fan understood the importance of all the people who gathered there, because the first was the emperor of the Eastern Pavilion along with Dong Huan, Prod, the second was Pavilion head Piaomiao along with Feng Yu. Jiang Fan understood that this matter had already been resolved. Ultimately, the elders said that they must realize that this secret realm is a huge space and only those who have the void realm level can enter this mysterious realm. The man also said that if they try to hide their kingdom and enter it, they will definitely touch the consequences of the border. After that, he looked at the main character and said that he did not think that he would be so desperate as to make a fool of himself in front of the others. Ultimately, he took out a certain key. This jade approached the portal. However, as soon as he came into collision with this, the purple color began to seem to split. Very soon the purple color of it all disappeared, and the elder announced it was in the public domain there. Tianji took the girl with him and said that, looking at how confident he is, she already believes that the winner is a foregone conclusion. At the same time, Feng Yu was obviously not in the best shape. The man understood that this was a rather rare opportunity, so he should start with it. At the same time, the girl did not understand what was happening because since that night she had been hearing a strange voice in her head. However, she understood that this time the secret realm was of even greater importance, because it was necessary to return the 9 odes of Mengtian left by the immortal swords in this secret realm. She looked back and understood that most likely Dong Huan would be forced to fight all of this. The guy understood that the girl felt that something was wrong this time, and even the others said that he needed to fill the bell with more blood from the beasts of the secret kingdom. Ultimately, he turned back and told the main character that he would go forward and said not to worry because he would find a way to take care of the girl if he met her. Jiang Fan looked at her student and asked if she remembered everything, to which the girl agreed. She said that she remembers that when entering the secret realm, she is teleported randomly, and after entering she needs to find a safe place and, among other things, not use magic in front of strangers. Jiang Fan said not to worry nearby. After that, he said to just have fun. "I'll go." As soon as the elder saw that Jiang Fan passed easily, he was deeply surprised. Ultimately, he decided that Jiang Fan would simply be buried anyway. Very soon they were separated, and the girl was very scared. Is it true? Jiang Fan realized that it seemed that he would not be able to teleport with her without coming into contact with the secret realm. Very soon the teleportation ended. Someone plopped right into the lake and all the surrounding animals were scared by such a loud sound. As it turned out, this person turned out to be Lin Luer, who did not understand what was happening and why she was in the water. In the first question she would ask about where the master ended up. Jiang Fan was surprised that he was immediately given a warm welcome. Having dealt with the animals, he said that it took some time and now we need to find out where she landed. However, immediately after this he noticed something unusual. The girl began to squeeze the water out of her clothes and said that she did not know why she ended up here. Of course, the water began to become covered with water ripples. As it turned out, you were the only monster that appeared from the depths, and Lin Luer didn't even have time to notice him. Limit. At the last moment she turned around and asked what it was. However, the monster had already begun to attack, and the girl could only take a step back. She clearly did not expect something like this, but she prepared for the fight. Having repelled the very first attack of the monster with her sword, she looked where she could somehow trade. However, even this attack left a small scratch on her cheek. As a result, the girl could not stand it and the blow sent her flying. She understood that things were bad. Without thinking twice, she used levitation, which was a low-level wind magic. As if pushing off from the wind, she made her blow at the sun. To her surprise, this attack only damaged the sword, and not the demon's skin. She opened her eyes wide in surprise. As a result, the snake began to make its next attack. The girl tried to fight back, but it was obvious that she was losing to him. All subsequent attacks also did not damage the snake in any way. The girl continued to make her attacks and tried to somehow cut the skin, but she did not succeed. She understood that her spiritual energy was all that was left and she had the next and final blow left. At the same time, her sword was also not in the best condition. She looked right into the monster's eyes, spent it. She understood that the next blow would be decisive. The monster revealed its power and was about to attack the girl when she remembered the words of the third sister. She remembered what she had told her, that large snake-like creatures had one weak point. The girl concentrated her energy and was about to strike a decisive blow. She even cast low-level flying magic, beyond the point. She understood that the belly, which is not protected by scales, is the place itself. Of course, in the end, she did it horizontally and was able to kill that same snake. Breathing heavily, she watched her work. Very soon this snake turned out to be dead and fell to the ground. As soon as he did this, the girl immediately calmed down, spent it. She literally started crying because she couldn't believe that she actually did it alone. Clutching the broken sword in her hands, she asked if her mother had seen her just do this. She said that she had finally begun to cultivate immortality and now everyone was saved. However, she did not expect that after that a huge amount of water would still flow from the lake. Looking at the lake, she was deeply surprised. There were 3 more such snakes behind her, and she understood that there was no way she could win. She literally dropped to her knees because she did not believe in her victory a priori. She understood that she could not release her magic, and her spiritual power was all spent, so she could not do anything. She closed her eyes and said goodbye to her master and mother because she realized that she was still too weak. The snakes were about to attack her. "I'll come." However, Jiang Fan came. He hit one of the snakes on the head with his fist. The girl no longer expected anything. However, Jiang Fan killed all the snakes at once with just this blow. He turned back and said the girl was doing a great job. Very soon she was lying under a tree and realized that Jiang Fan had saved her again. Spying on the man, she wondered when she would become as strong as him. At the same time, Jiang Fan took the island directly. The man understood that the breath of this beast was saturated, appeared, and he didn't understand who the hell was capable of this. At the same time, in another, someone was fighting with a huge bear. With one movement of his hand he killed this beast. Ultimately, the beast, or rather its body, fell down. After that, the girl began to please him, spent it. The man said that she could take away this bear's life power pill. She thanked him and kissed him on the cheek. After this, the man looked to the side and saw another student who did not have time to use the sign. He began to despise such people. She remembered how the master specifically gave him 3 high-level omelets and told him to use them only at a critical moment. The man thought that the old man was too restless. However, no one noticed the red glow. An archer took aim at his head. The girl turned back and said that she had found the life pill. However, at the same time, an arrow flew towards her chest. This arrow was fatal, and the girl herself clearly did not expect something like this. Fell in love. The man was angry that he did not notice his pursuer and asked who dared to attack him on the sly. He made a strike and behave. Eventually he realized that he couldn't feel his breath at all. At the same time, the girl was talking to her brother and begging him to help her while the man said shut up and beat them. They don't have time for her now. At the same time, the archer loaded another 3 arrows. She realized that this was another scumbag who abandoned his partner. The dark elf smiled and said that she liked it. After that, she launched her attack. The man delivered it on time. He called her a nasty rat. However, no one expected that these arrows would begin to bounce several times while trying to penetrate, when, actually, everyone wasn't surprised by this fact either. The elf looked at the huge explosion. She smiled, and it looks like the 23rd X of that day will be a big fish. A certain saint said that they pretend to be angels of light, preaching something completely different. Feng Yu stopped and looked at the man. She clearly didn't expect so much blood. Jumped. The man said that they covet money, commit adultery, and are driven by their lust. The man called Eastern heretics whose sin is unforgivable and subject to destruction and pointed a gun at the girl. He said that he who does not recognize God is his enemy. Pointing the gun, he asked God for forgiveness. The girl immediately summoned her swords because she did not expect something like this. She told them to go ahead. The man said that this is the Eastern evil art of witchcraft. After that, with a slight movement of his hand, he destroyed all the knives and said that she overestimated her strength. And he concentrated and started shooting with his pistol. Beat him. the girl could hardly dodge these bullets. At the same time, she noticed that these bullets literally burned through the ground. The girl understood that she had never seen such an unusual weapon. At the same time, the man continued his tirade. He said that if Tanya respects God, then she is his enemy. After that, the man made a sharp jerk and the girl somehow managed to dodge the blow in the air. However, she did not expect that the man would pick up a gun and start shooting with it. The girl instantly activated the technique of 4 styles of sword flight and lost her way to Huli. The man thought for a moment and summoned another technique. The man said that the blood must be atoned for. Ultimately, the entire site was covered in a thick layer of smoke. As a result, the battle continued, and they engaged in ball fights, spaces. However, it was not obvious that the girl was at a disadvantage. The man called her a vile witch. The man said to stop talking about this nonsense because he doesn't have time to bother with her. At the same time, the girl realized that she had another headache attack. Taking advantage of the opportunity, the enemy struck her. As a result, the girl ended up nailed to a tree. Arrived, the man slowly began to approach her. Spacebar. The woman was powerless. Walked, he touched her chin and said that despite the fact that she was a heretic, her sword skills were worthy of respect. He raised his sword and turned to God. However, what no one expected was that Dong Huan would arrive there. He decided to hit the man, but he dodged. Dong Huan ended up standing next to the girl. The man clearly did not expect reinforcements. The girl was about to explain something, but the man stopped her. He smiled and said that she was not like usual. At the same time, the battle between the elf and Tianji continued. The girl tried to ask him for help, but could not do anything. The man looked at her with disgust. He asked if she didn't know how to use the teleportation table to escape and said not to distract herself. The girl said that she knows that no matter how much spiritual power she pours in, it doesn't work. The elf came up and said that it should be so. She asked if she had ever heard of a hunter who voluntarily released his prey. The girl smiled and said that it was time for fun. The elf came up and asked what she could do to amuse herself. When the man understood that she was not human, he asked if she was a dark elf and said that it was not surprising that there were so many corpses here because she turned off teleportation. The girl was very surprised that he found out who she was. However, she pulled back the string and said that she would come to the next one. The elf asked what the girl thought about agreeing to a deal with her. She said that she should also attack her partner with the strongest technique, and if she did this, she would save her life. Within a moment the report began. The man said that she was simply mocking. Arrived, he asked if she really thought that he would listen to her demonic admonitions. One girl, of course, rose from her seat. The dark elf looked at what was happening with interest. The man clenched his teeth and now straightened them. The girl also became covered with a strange aura. As a result, it turned out that the man attacked the girl and the elf, and the girl attacked only her enemy, that is, the dark elf. The arrows bounced off each other. As a result, the wounded person was a girl who began coughing from loss of blood. The man clearly did not expect such a turn of events. "I'm losing consciousness," she said that she really loved him. Nevertheless, these were already the last words of the dead man. The girl, or rather her body, fell down. I understand that he just created Tianji and just clenched his teeth. At the same time, the dark elf could not contain her laughter. Immediately after that, she laughed out loud. The girl said that people from the east are very funny. However, the man with a grim expression told her to shut up. He attacked the girl, and she quickly fought back. There was a huge explosion. At the same time, blood began to flow down towards the water. The girl came out of the tree and said that she had changed her clothes. She asked what she looked like. Jiang Fan said that the school's regular attire also looked good on her. Suddenly he noticed something strange. There were many corpses lying near the river and the bones seemed to begin to rise from the ground. As it turned out, there was a certain necromancer in front of him. Some man with the appearance of Anubis said to give in life. Jiang Fan smiled softly and realized that they had finally taken action. Very soon the skeletons surrounded the main characters. They began to slowly approach them. When the girl saw the next number, she shuddered with fear. Nevertheless, she took such to remember. She immediately cut her throat soon. Very soon the head rolled at her feet, jumped. At the same time, the head itself was still alive and the girl was moving and screaming. She asked her master what these monsters wrapped in cloth were and said that they were disgusting. Jiang Fan said that legend says that on the banks of the ancient rivers flowing through the desert of death in the west, the art of immortality was bred, which drains the body and soul. The man said that they anointed the dead with oils and herbs, and then wrapped them in fabric symbolizing immortality, and these undead began to be called mummies. And he is one of the demon hunters of the fire order. Jiang Fan said that at the head of the army in death is a legendary priest with the head of a jackal and the body of a man. At the same time, the enemy, or rather the necromancer, was surprised that there were people in the east who knew them so well. Lin Luer was surprised by the fact that the necromancer was speaking. He said his name is it without, he will come. He introduced himself as the messenger of the god of death, the guardian of the river of immortality. The man asked to give him time to measure the weight of their hearts. He told them to prepare to meet the kiss of sweet death and fall into the arms of the god of death. Immediately afterwards, Jiang Fan told the girl to close her eyes and be careful. Covering them with his hand, he said not to look into his eyes. At the same time, the girl was surprised that someone grabbed her leg. The girl was very surprised and asked her master what was happening. At the same time, the man said to do what they say and close your eyes, soon everything will be over. After the master's words, the girl focused on this goal. Jiang Fan just smiled and looked at his opponent. He said the name makes him a little nostalgic. The man said that it was almost 10,000 years ago. He made a sharp jerk and said that he remembered that he beat a guy with a similar look. At the same time, the necromancer clearly did not expect such a quick breakthrough. Dong Huan bleeds from his mouth. He was still standing and said that he was stronger than the one he met. The saint said that it looks like Mobius has been defeated since she says so. The guy said that the man who fought us to the end did not want to reveal his name, but it turns out his name is Mobius, and asked if this was the etiquette of Western barbarians. The saint said that Mobius was crazy, but he had no desire to learn anything, so he did not understand their language, and may the saint rest in peace. He took the sword out of the book and said that he himself would avenge it. With a serious expression on his face, he said that the heretics would be destroyed. Dong Huan tensed. The girl tried to warn the man, but he told her not to move, and he told her to rest for now and wait until he deals with this guy. The girl said that it was just a small wound and asked him to be careful, especially with his magic weapon in his belt, and held out her sword. He told her that she shouldn't force herself because she had done it before. The girl said that now everything is in order, and the main thing is that the jade tablet does not work, and it is unknown how many Western killers like him have penetrated the secret kingdom. He clenched his teeth and became lost in his thoughts. Ultimately, he introduced himself and asked how he got here between the rift between heaven and earth. The saint said that the sinner's words should be ignored, but out of politeness he would say his name. He said his name was Zeus and he was one of the demon hunters of the fire order. Making a sharp jerk, he said that he would grant them freedom from their sins. After that, he concentrated his attack on the girl, and the guy was very scared. At the same time, the girl told him to look back. It seemed that Zeus was behind her and had already prepared her next attack. Making his attack without any delay, the man was already expecting his victory. Zeus swung at his opponent. At the same time, Dong Huan stopped his attack with his own palms, spent it. However, it was obvious that such an evil sword could not be stopped so easily. Dong Huan became very tense. He ended up deflecting the attack. At the same time, Feng Yu stood up and was about to swing at the saint. It was obvious that she was very ill and she could no longer see in one eye, but she still tried to do everything she could. However, this was too obvious an attack for the saint. He turned and hit her. Very soon he headed towards this VK girl. She could hardly stand on her feet. At some point, the girl realized that her headache would not stop at this rate. They would both die here. After that, the girl called Dong Huan and he appeared right in front of her. The guy looked back and understood that all these years she had been taking care of him like a sister, but he had never seen her in such bad condition, and the only reason was this man. At the same time, Zeus swung at the guy again. Ultimately, the guy made up his mind and activated a strange technique. Strange symbols appeared on his face and he called for the suppression of the Eastern Emperor's bell. The guy understood that now it was his turn to protect her. At the same time, this strange glow was also noticed on another battlefield. The elf and Tianji temporarily stopped their battle to look at this ray of light. She asked what it was all about. At the same time, the Heating understood that Dong Huang took advantage of this, which means things are very bad. Tianji turned to the elf. He took out all of his available talismans and it was obvious that he was about to start a serious battle. The elf instantly understood the changed atmosphere and also took off her cape. After that, things started to get serious. The elf noticed the obvious attack. Instantly dodging somersaults, she continued to analyze her opponent. She understood that cultivators below the Void Realm were no more than C-rank adventurers, and even though they had a big gap, he still fought with her, A-rank, for a very long time. She eventually got her hands on the arrow. She took her starting position and began to attack. The girl said that she was tired of playing with it and she herself realized that she had to get rid of it and check what kind of light it was. The girl told him to just die. Nevertheless, the man dodged such an obvious attack, not understanding why he should make it so obvious. Tianji said that it was simply ridiculous to try to kill him with such a weak attack. Meanwhile, the elf smiled at this statement. The man instantly realized that everything was far from being as simple as it seemed. As it turned out, this arrow did not stop until it reached its target, and no matter how the man tried to dodge, it was in vain. The elf just watched this dance and met with everything else. The man dodged the attack once again. However, the arrow returned to him again. Ultimately, I understand that he no longer had a choice. The man tried to block it with his own body. The arrow had already made contact with the phantom arms that surrounded the man. However, at the same moment the elf licked herself. The arrow went through all the defenses and ended up in the man's chest. I couldn't believe that his spiritual power disappeared at that very moment. Immediately after this there was a huge explosion. The elf said that she was very sorry, but it was obvious that she was saying this with irony. She came up and said that, as they say, he should be careful in the next life and not encounter such a sister again. However, at some point the elf noticed something. At the last moment, the tip of the sword began to move closer and closer to her and almost reached her. Immediately after this, her body began to become covered with a dark substance. As it turned out, Lin Luer appeared from this smoke and tried to harm her. She chuckled because she instantly realized that it was dark magic ore. Nevertheless, the elf was surprised that the little girl could be doing here and told her not to be stupid and to leave. However, an unfamiliar voice was suddenly heard, which the elf clearly did not expect. He praised Lin Luer's strike, and she blushed and greeted her master. The elf instantly realized that there was another person in this smoke. Jiang Fan smiled and said that she really had talent, and the girl was extremely flattered. As soon as she saw him, she wondered if Anubis had failed. She couldn't believe that an S-level necromancer who had received incomplete god of death divinity could lose. At the same time, Jiang Fan turned and asked if he was accompanying this person. After that, he threw someone's head. The head rolled to the elf's feet, and Jiang Fan said that it was a direct descendant of the death god from the west in the third generation. Jiang Fan said that he was truly something. After that, the man smiled and asked him to tell him who they were and what the purpose of invading the secret kingdom was, otherwise he would have to kill them. She tensed and looked frantically at the main character. However, immediately after this, the golden pillar appeared again. When Lin Luer saw this, she was quite surprised. I understood that this all concerned Zeus. At some point, Lin Luer noticed that the elf had run away and pointed this out to her master. Jiang Fan said that it would be more beneficial for him to let her go alive without killing her yet. And on top of that, he is very interested in what is happening there, while Lin Luer said that she feels magic there. However, the man understood that even more important was the warmth that was grafted to the earth. He was bleeding and called the name of the main character. At the same time, let's pause for a moment and remember that the legend said that the ancient emperor divided the chaos with his own hands and left a huge bell on the top of the mountain on the extreme mountain in order to guard the eastern continent, and whenever the bell sounded, heaven and earth were planed. And for whom, during the battle of the gods of the west, the evil god broke this bell that guarded the east. One of the fragments was taken by the immortals who founded a school called the Eastern Pavilion. Those who have received the approval of the Eastern Emperor's bell, regardless of age, gender, or origin, receive a name passed down from 10,000 years. And that name was Donghuan Tai Yi. At the same time, Zeus was still fighting with the guy. All his attacks were repulsed by this strange bell. At the same time, Feng Yu was worried about her friend. At the same time, with water, he could not believe that he saw such an incredible protective ability. He opened his eyes and noticed that the man was charging his attack. The guy smiled and activated the technique of drinking and perfecting pure yang. He struck Zeus and he was surprised by his strength. He opened his eyes wide because he couldn't believe it. Such a strong blow made him open his mouth wide and even scream. Such a blow forced him to retreat. Zeus understood that this was a very powerful blow. At the same time, the guy was beaming with happiness. He understood that if such was the power of the Eastern Emperor's bell, then he would be able to win. He thought that such a person could protect the girl, but his eyes instantly became bloodshot. The girl foreshadowed something like this and called his name. The guy's heart was literally in pain. He didn't understand what was happening and he vomited blood. Feng Yu immediately stood up from her seat because she was worried about her friend. She helped support the guy, who himself could barely stand on his feet and was coughing. She begged him to stop using the bell. At the same time, Zeus already realized that this was a fragment of the bell of the Eastern Emperor. The man clearly did not expect to encounter such a huge increase from one fragment and realized that it should not be underestimated. The girl said that he was now too weak to use the bell and most likely it would lead to a terrible result. However, the guy did not listen to her and said that in this case he needed to finish as soon as possible. He took her hand and squeezed it. Smiling, he asked her to believe. After that, he slowly walked to the saint, who understood that this would not end quickly. Dong Huan said that he really wants everything to end quickly. Zeus activated his ability and waited to attack. At the same time, Money made a jerk towards him and swung at him. However, Zeus was not taken aback and was able to stop the guy's blow with his own hand. At the same time, the guy couldn't believe that he caught him with his bare hands. However, Zeus said that absolutely everything is possible in this world. Immediately after that, he activated his book. Everyone around them instantly realized that their spiritual powers were beginning to disappear. Zeus activated the extermination spell, which is prohibited by the order. He said that eventually they, the heretics, would die. At the same time, the guy continued to curse him because he couldn't believe it. Feng Yu loudly called the guy's name because she was worried about him. However, let's return to the main character. The Plaid said that these talismans are of Jindan level and said that he thanks the main character for saving him and will never forget this kindness. Jiang Fan said that he did not need his talismans and said that this jade teleportation token could still be used and if someone answered his questions, he would let him go. Jiang Fan asked the man what this heavenly stone was. The man replied that it was a special spiritual stone that his master found in the ruins near the secret realm, and not only did it provide a large amount of spiritual energy when used in cultivation, but some of them could even provide the incarnation of an avatar. At the same time, Jiang Fan looked at the girl. He asked if nothing happened after using the stone. Jiang Fan asked if after using it, his mood didn't change dramatically or he didn't become a demon or something like that. Tianji said that he did not know, but at least within the main gate, such a situation had not occurred. Jiang Fan wondered if that incident was special and what kind of familiar aura this was. Jiang Fan narrowed his eyes and was lost in thought. At the same time, he wondered what kind of technology and the West was that allowed his spiritual energy to disappear so easily. Jiang Fan said to forget about it because nothing else is needed, and he can leave. The client thanked the main character for saving his life and said that she would pay him in the future. At the same time, the man understood that as soon as he could leave this hellish place, he would inform the master that Jiang Fan was in cahoots with the barbarians from the west. However, as soon as the man activated the talisman, the same bloody sludge that struck his chest suddenly began to stir. In despair, for many years I looked at the main character and thought that if he was here, he must know something. Tianji begged to help him and said that he did not want to die here and he still had a lot of useful information. Out of desperation, he still called him, but everything was in vain. Ultimately, the man's body dissolved into a strange symbol. The man approached the girl's corpse and closed her eyes. Jiang Fan understood that in other words, everything was exactly as he thought. Immediately afterwards, Dong Huang's chest was pierced. With such a strong blow, he vomited blood again. Zeus looked at his opponent neutrally and expressed nothing. The guy's blood was slowly dripping from his sword. Feng Yu couldn't believe it and just went crazy. Despite the fact that the guy was still conscious, it was obvious that he was in very serious condition. The guy tensed up and asked who ultimately is his center. Zeus said that everything happens this way and the boss says, and he, as a subordinate, does what he is told and does not ask questions. Eventually a certain fox came there. She threw some devices and told him to react to them. As it turned out, it was homemade explosives. The saint was very surprised by such devices and did not open his eyes wide. I understood that I was doing all the strong flashes and exciting buzzing, such an idea. At the same time, Feng Yu covered her ears and didn't understand what it was because they hurt so much. Very soon the other 2 bombs were activated. Very soon the entire area was covered with these bombs. Feng Yu instantly recognized the smoke and wondered if this was who she was thinking about. Ing Chushue had grabbed the guy by the collar. Thus, she was able to separate him from the enemy's sword and grabbed him by the collar. She said those 2 were always giving him trouble. Feng Yu couldn't believe that it was the fox who was helping them. Of course, in the end, Ing Chushue told her to catch her partner and threw the man towards her. The girl caught her partner and friend with difficulty. She would have said it more carefully, because Dong Huan was seriously injured. However, Ing Chushue said that it is not so easy to die when you cultivate immortality and took a stance. The girl said that to be clear, she is not trying to save them. She said she just couldn't stand the thought of those Western bastards doing whatever they wanted. Zeus held out his sword and said that the devilish foxes must also be killed. Ultimately, the men cut down all the girl's techniques. The fox tensed and realized that she was out of luck. Zeus told the elf not to stand in his way. It was Vika who said that a man named Jiang Fan was hunting for her and they needed to leave as soon as possible, because they had restrained themselves. Zeus was outraged by this proposal and asked if she really wanted him to release the heretics. The elf said to stop causing problems because Anubis died at the hands of this man. Zeus clearly did not expect such a revelation. He calmed down and said that he would go with her. The fox breathed out a sigh of relief. However, immediately after this, there was a loud shout that told them to remember something. Zeus said that this battle is not over yet and the next time they see each other they will die. The same thing he said would apply to that half-dead guy. The man said not to let him die until this moment. They ended up teleporting out from behind this room. Ing Chushue sat down on the grass with relief and said that they had finally left. At the same time, Dong Huan was slowly dying, and the girl tried her best to worry about him. She asked why he was so brave. Ing Chushue sked his cheek and asked if he was still alive, because it would be better to take him out of the secret kingdom as soon as possible in order to cure him. Feng Yu said that he really needs to be cured, but teleportation doesn't work and she doesn't know what to do. The girl was in despair, but at the same moment she heard some unfamiliar voice that wondered why she couldn't just leave this guy here. She was immediately surprised by these thoughts and could not believe them. However, at the same moment the company of the protagonist approached. Jiang Fan said that he had cleared the surrounding spells and if they wanted to leave, they could use the jade token. The man understood that their goal was to leave the heavenly stone a secret to the kingdom and, together with Tianji's last words, this means something amazing. He remembered all the blazing space that was in his memories. Feng Yu said that the invasion of the barbarians of the West is not a trifle and they must notify the cultivators outside the secret realm, and besides, Dong Huang's current wounds cannot be put off, so they will leave the secret realm. The girl said that there is a sword cemetery nearby and they say that the Mengtian sword immortal law is sealed on it. The girl said that this task had been entrusted to her master, but now she could not do it. She gave the key to Lin Luer and said that if he was interested, they could go there and it would definitely pay a visit. Feng Yu activated the talismans and said that she was leaving. When leaving, she said that she was counting on them while Jiang Fan was still looking at the place where they were from. At the same time, many people wondered how so much time had passed, but no one used jade teleportation to leave the secret realm. Many wondered if something had happened. Many understood that from what they heard, the lamp of life of Tianji, who was a great disciple, had just gone out. People understood that something clearly strange was happening and the rumors did not calm down. At the same time, the elders and organizers did nothing about it. At the same time, the elder squeezed the tree in his hand. This is discontent and misunderstanding of what is happening. He was furious and couldn't understand how he could die in such a place and wondered if Jiang Fan had done this again. The other organizer looked at him with contempt and was just lost in her thoughts. The third organizer was only worried about Dong Huang. The girl carefully watched her and drew her own conclusions. Fixing her gaze, she realized that, judging by his reaction, everything must have happened wrong and began to only hope that Feng Yu was okay. Very soon, someone finally left this secret kingdom. All the organizers looked at those leaving with excitement. As it turned out, Feng Yu and Dong Huan began to come out from there. Everyone instantly realized that they were very seriously injured. What happened and how could it happen? After all, this is just the secret realm of the Void Sphere. Another organizer understood that this was very strange early on, and as if she were a person, and also for the spots, strange symbols that did not look like spiritual ones. The head of the sect asked what happened and why they were so badly injured and why the Tianji life lamp went out. The girl looked at them silently and could not say anything. Very soon the girl began to tell what happened. Feng Yu explained that the reason for all this was the barbarians who were hiding in the secret realm, and they had strange spells that could stop the use of spiritual energy. The girl said that the other cultivator who entered the secret realm was simply unlucky because of her, Dong Huang was seriously injured by some Westerner named Zeus, and then dark-skinned women with long ears appeared. She said she didn't know what they said and then they left. Feng Yu said that if Dong Huan had not tried to save her, he would not have been so badly injured. In addition, the girl said that these two were most likely avoiding the main character, and after they left, Jiang Fan appeared, and it was thanks to him that they were able to escape with Dong Huan using jade. The girl said that in gratitude to him, she gave his student the secret key to the 9 ODs of Mengtian, which the master entrusted to him. The master asked if she had told absolutely everything, and, if so, her future affairs would be much more difficult and confusing. At the same time, the main character was near some bamboo span. Lin Luer and Ing Chueshua looked around and realized that most likely this was the very sword cemetery that the girl was talking about. However, they didn't understand something if it really was a cemetery. Ing Chueshua asked why there were so many status stones on the way in addition to broken swords. At some point, Jiang Fan turned to the girls and said that they were most likely there. Instead of gloomily, they looked ahead and were very surprised. In front of them was a statue of a nine-tailed fox, and Jiang Fan said that this was most likely the so-called immortal sword space. I was very surprised when I saw something like that. She directed the key to the statue, and he sat down like this. After this, the statue began to move as if it felt like it. As a result, the stone statue, which seemed lifeless, began to shed its scales and show its true nature. Many multicolored rays of light began to spread in all directions. Lin Luer and everyone else were extremely surprised. Jiang Fan looked back and realized that the others had been taken away, and he found himself in front of a cherry tree with fox statues. Jiang Fan addressed the statue as Xiaojiu and said that although you don't know what he wants, he asked that the two of them return safe and sound. The little fox closed his eyes and seemed to agree with this. However, let's return to Lin Luer. The girl closed her eyes for a moment and wondered what kind of light you were just now. After that, she began to look around and realized that she was in a separate room. Turning her head, she wondered what that noise was. The girl realized that the sound was coming from one of the sides and decided to check. At the same time, Ing Chushue found herself in a completely different room, which was covered in flames. She couldn't believe what she was seeing and started crying because of it. At the same time, Lin Luer quickly reached the source of the noise. As it turned out, someone was splashing in the water there. A certain man, clearly angry, asked if the time had come. Nervous, Lin Luer greeted and asked permission to ask what this place was and how she could return. A certain woman smiled and turned around. She said she had been watching this game for 000 years. Immediately after this, Lin Luer was very surprised. As it turned out, the go chip that Fox took was covered with some strange energy. Not long after that, they were sucked into some kind of funnel. After that, the chip gently dropped as if nothing had happened. Very soon the entire board seemed to materialize. Lin Luer closed her eyes from such a bright light. However, very soon she found herself in a completely different space. This space was like extreme space, and the girl could not help but notice that it was a very beautiful space. Lin Luer couldn't believe what she was seeing. It was shining so beautifully like a starry sky. However, she didn't understand if her older sister had sent her for this. I drank it through. She approached and realized that this sword in the mouth of the stone statue was already very similar. She touched this sword with her torment and the space seemed to begin to collapse. The girl instantly realized that the space was being broken by the mirror and wondered what she should do. Out of desperation, she began to call her master, and suddenly someone grabbed her by the collar. It was someone who led her out of the crashing space. After being released, she quickly turned her head because she did not understand what was happening and who was pulling her. As it turned out, this person was Jiang Fan, who calmly saved her and said that everything was fine. The man said that initially, after this hidden secret kingdom collapsed, she would have come out on her own, but seeing her panic, he had to pull her out. She finally ended up on Earth. Jiang Fan said that it seemed like she had decided to entrust her with the mirror moon blade, and the girl also said that she just saw her older sister playing chess under a waterfall in a bamboo forest and she said something, but the sound of the water was too loud for her to be heard reasonably. However, after that, she still asked where Ing Chushue was. Jiang Fan said that he was not sure that he could understand her on the external situation for once. She received the mirror moon, which means she met Xiaojiu's good side. And this all means that the girl met the opposite way. As a result, it turned out that Ing Chushue met the 1,000-year period of the clan and all the grievances of the demon foxes along with it. This creature began to take over the body of the girl, who no longer seemed to be saying with her own voice that everything would be decided today. After listening to the story, Ing Chushue finally understood what it all meant. She literally cried and said that for more than 1,000 years, Her Majesty endured all this alone. She literally favored her queen. She began to approach the man locked in shackles and offered to leave this place together. Ultimately, the fox seemed to light up with a bright light. At the same time, all those people who were holding those void stones seemed to begin to glow. All these stones began to seem to burn. The sky became unnaturally pink and purple. Even Jiang Fan noticed how the space began to collapse. The man said that the purple light and that huge soul aura piercing the sky meant something. At the same time, Lin Luer noticed that the space was being destroyed in every possible way. While the girl was falling, Jiang Fan was able to pick her up. The girl asked what was happening because it looked exactly the same as how that space was destroyed. Jiang Fan said that this small world seems to be collapsing and exactly what he was afraid of happened. Ultimately, Jiang Fan took her in his arms and told her to get out of this secret kingdom first. A certain stranger in thick armor took a step forward in the kingdom. This is the same person who was watching Lin Luer, and behind him were the elf and Zeus. The elf asked if after all these troubles and the loss of so many people everything would really end well. Zeus said that he doesn't care if it works or not, but everyone should remember that his target is that guy and he won't let anyone interfere with this duel. The same man of choice did not say that the main thing was that all the preconditions were met. He stroked the thieves and said that this was a wonderful performance. After this, the space began to collapse, and he said that the time had finally come to open the curtain. At the same time, the elder was still standing after the gate and did not know what happened. He still wondered what had happened and whether the barbarians had really lost the secret kingdom. Suddenly he opened his eyes wide as he saw something very strange. Spent it, the portal turned purple again, which meant a very strong change. All the other organizers immediately noticed this and reacted. The remaining heads of the small septs did not understand what this violet light was and what was happening to their students. The sect leader told everyone to shut up because this was a very serious situation. The man said they were just a bunch of useless idiots. One scythe. After that, Jiang Fan came out of the portal along with his student. The man took out the same bottle from the tree from his pocket and asked if something had happened in the secret kingdom and it was somehow connected with him. Jiang Fan looked at the man and ignored him. The elder did not hear the answer in your direction and became even more angry. However, unexpectedly, behind the portal, a certain girl laughed cheerfully, on which I had not noticed her presence. I was extremely surprised. Ultimately, there was a kitsune behind the portal. The elder was still shouting at the main character and asking what happened in the secret kingdom and who he was. Jiang Fan sadly couldn't even answer anything. The man said that it was the nine-tailed fox Nan Gong Meng. Nan Gong Meng said that 1,000 years have passed and people are still so stupid. She walked out of the portal in her heels. Very soon she approached the very mountain with the crystal. The man could not believe that these 9 tails really exist. Nan Gong Meng said that the passage of time is truly a sad sight. She put her hand on the stone and thought deeply. She said that this is the place where the transformed flesh gathered. Suddenly, some kind of pink gas began to flow into her family, which was released from this stone. Very soon this stone was covered with a purple aura and began to literally melt. The elder said that this cannot be a question. After all, it is obvious that the last of the 9-tailed foxes had to destroy their souls 1,000 years ago, and even if their bodies were burned by heavenly fire, this is simply impossible. However, Nan Gongmeng did not intend to hear this rainbow and got angry and said that it was too noisy for her. She looked straight into his eyes and his whole world felt like it was covered in black paint. The man understood that the girl was literally hypnotizing him and did not understand what kind of demonic art this was. Unexpectedly, the man began to choke his own throat. While he was doing this, Nan Gongmeng was still looking at him intently. The man resisted hypnosis in every possible way and said that he was the master of the truth sect and what she wanted. The woman asked what this had to do with her due to the fact that he was just standing next to him. He entered abruptly enough to die. The rest of the organizers looked at each other because they didn't know what to do. After that, they cooperated and used their energy. The elder began to beg the other masters to help him and cancel the magic. The man said that the truth sect would be very grateful in the future. However, in reality, it was obvious that the two had simply run away. The man ended up breaking a bone from that suffocation. Thus the man died and his body began to fall down. The rest of the crowd couldn't believe it. They immediately began whispering in front of them and wondering if this nine-tailed fox was really that strong. They understood that in such a situation it was simply impossible for the masters to escape, but they did it anyway. As a result of the body, the elder was surrounded by all the other people. Immediately after this, people began to frantically run away because they did not want to run away. As soon as the woman saw such a reaction, she smiled. She said that since it was all over, we could start. She looked at the main character and said that it was time for them to die. Immediately after this, the crystal began to emit some unequal amount of energy, which formed something like a dome. Ultimately, Jiang Fan along with the student and Nan Gongmeng were locked together. All the other masters who tried to escape while everyone else was told not to touch this barrier were locked in the same way. Everyone immediately began to fear him. As a result, the one who touched this barrier was from dry land and suffered until his death. Spent it. Jiang Fan looked at the girl apathetically. The rest of the masters did not understand that the rest began to be afraid of what would happen to them. Very soon everything calmed down. She took the main character's face in her hands and said that his eyes remained the same as they were 1,000 years ago, tender and shining. The woman said that she was sorry that with his destroyed immortal body, he could not even heal his wounded immortal soul, and only by closing his eyes throughout the day could he prevent the immortal soul from disappearing. Nan Gongmeng said that Jiang Fan owed her 1,000 years ago and suggested that they take revenge together. She came very close to him, almost close to him for a kiss. Lin Luer said that this is all wrong. With trembling hands and voice, she said that she must save the master. Waving her sword, she said to let him go, and the girl took a step back. Nan Gongmeng became angry and said that from the very beginning, she felt the stench of magical power around him and realized that she was a witch from the west. She asked how dare anyone interrupt her. Lin Luer looked at her with trembling hands and listened to all the insults. She was outraged that that naive idiot really gave her the moon blade, and if it wasn't her who was next to him, otherwise everything would have been different. She hid behind her master and said that it seemed to her that this Dima looked like Ing Chushue. Jiang Fan said that the woman she met in that small world was the embodiment of Xiaojiu's good thoughts. After that, he explained that in front of them were the same 1,000-year-old embodiment of evil after she received Ing Chushue's body. When Jiang Fan told about her, Nan Gongmeng looked into the distance. Very soon she turned her gaze and looked at the main character. She came close to him and asked if he had just called her evil. Betrayed Let It said that she did not expect that the less-than-immortal who killed her with his own hands would communicate with this witch from the west. However, Jiang Fan did not react to any provocations. She lifted his chin and said that it didn't matter because she could still give him another chance if he wanted to join her. She moved closer to his ear and whispered about a dream together. After that, she asked if he really wanted to kill her one more time and if he really believed that with his broken immortal soul he would last a long time on this earth. Lin Luer was very worried about her master. However, Jiang Fan was away. When Nan Gongmeng saw this girl again, her face literally twisted. Jiang Fan said that he really owed her a lot. However, the man said that, as she had noticed now, what he could do to protect those around him was his limit. At the same time, the raven watched the dialogue between these two heavenly ones. A pair of red eyes carefully observed everything that was happening and recorded everything. Suddenly, the raven himself began to become covered in red drops. Jiang Fan said that he would never allow Zoom to manipulate his good friends. He opened his eyes and called her again. As soon as Baya made her way into this space, Jiang Fan said that she had been tormenting this world and herself for so long. With a serious expression on his face, he said that today he would release some. After such a statement, Nan Gongmeng's face turned purple. Baya leaned on the protagonist's shoulder and looked at her opponent. She lowered her head and asked what kind of liberation we were talking about white. Looking at the main character with contempt, she asked what it was. She grabbed Lin Luer's chin and continued her speech. She asked if Lin Luer, whom he sheltered, knew absolutely nothing. Indignantly, she turned to Bai Yao and placed her hand on her thigh. With contempt, she said that this was the same as telling this nymphomaniac spider to voluntarily let go of the past and listen to it. She went further and asked what about the thousands of gods, Buddhas and demons that Stalin killed in the path of evil. Jiang Fan remained silent and looked into the distance. If she said that the only relief for her is the fact that he already knows how she is like that and asked why she should pretend. Nan Gongmeng said that from the very beginning, she only had one choice. She clenched her fist and made up her mind. Immediately after this, that same crystal began to collapse. With an expression of euphoria on her face, she already foreshadowed everything that would happen next. She said that if they were the only ones left on this earth, then even he, an immortal, would have to look only at him from me. Nan Gongmeng said that she doesn't need anyone's protection because she hates herself for being weak. After this, the locked fox began to remove his crystal shell. Nan Gongmeng said something that this world gave her is only 000 years of pain and suffering. Ultimately, Nan Gongmeng said that it was time to pay. The rest of the cultivators were very frightened because they could not believe that the legendary nine-tailed demonic fox had awakened. They instantly realized that they would not be saved and wondered what they should do. Suddenly, the eye of that same fox lit up with a bright light. Immediately afterwards, all the cultivators began to feel as if their cultivation and soul were being sucked out of their bodies. While this long process was taking place, they wondered if they would really die now, because if everything continued in this spirit, then they would not even reach reincarnation and beg to be saved. Ultimately, all these souls united into one huge purple ball. That same fox came out of his bonds and destroyed all that stone. Ultimately, all preparations were completed and Nan Gongmeng, together with the huge nine tails, began to confront the main character. If you said that if he says yes, then she will stay next to him and will not destroy everything dirty, wrong and despicable in this world. Nevertheless, she said that she herself understood perfectly well that he would not say this even after 1,000 years and even after 10,000 years. And this will never happen according to her. The same ball with the souls of people appeared in her hands, and she said that let this be the last fun for him. She brought the ball closer to her and said to start. Baya asked if he really called her in such a hurry for this. She asked if he really needed help with his ex-Yandra partner. When Lin Luer heard this, she asked if it was really like that. Hao Jiang Fan flicked her forehead and told her to speak. The master said that they did not have the relationship she thought about. After that, Jiang Fan looked at all this and asked her what she thought about it. While Bayao's hair slowly turned black, she said that this was all very complicated and her soul was severely divided into countless parts by some kind of Western curse. She continued that she most likely deserves to be one of the 4 great demons guarding the divine world because she uses this heavenly stone and the souls of cultivators to absorb the negative emotions and spiritual energy between heaven and earth. The girl said that it is this half of the divine soul that is afraid of becoming completely corrupted. After that, together with the fox, they screamed loudly in pain. There was a huge explosion of energy, but the writer said that if Jiang Fan did not take this seriously, then once she was completely absorbed in this murderous intent, nothing would stop her. She said they could actually die here. Baya said that they could really die here. Suddenly, Nan Gongmeng's eye lit up with light. Jiang Fan immediately noticed this and reacted immediately. He took a stance, preparing for the next attack. Nan Gongmeng is not in the house of the shaft. Why is all this happening? Jiang Fan first told Baya to retreat and help Lin Luer because she received the Mirror Moon Blade, in which there is a secret realm where the other half of Xiaojiu's soul is sealed. Jiang Fan said that in this way, perhaps they could find a clue to save Xiaojiu. Jiang Fan said, as for him, this is a completely different story. He looked at the crazy fox, who kept saying one word, why? She asked why he protects such women. Her rage literally broke all the stones. Her hands became covered with a strange black substance, and she asked why there were always so many annoying things. Her tails appeared, and she asked why he always gets in her way. She kept repeating why. Out of despair, she covered her face with her hands and asked why someone always stands between them. Jiang Fan noticed that the evil energy had become greater. Bai Yao and Lin Luer looked at the main one as he was speechless. At some point, Nan Gongmeng came to the conclusion that it was probably because he was too gentle and it was simply not my place to refuse people. On this occasion her eyes glowed pink. She smiled and said that he just needed to reconsider his attitude so that Jiang Fan would only look at her. Immediately after that, she concentrated her attention on Lin Luer. Making a sharp leap forward, she said that for the sake of the main character, they would all disappear. Jiang Fan abruptly stood between her and Lin Luer and told her not to touch them. At the same time, Nan Gongmeng asked why he constantly stopped her. Jiang Fan said that in the end, this only concerns her and there is no need to involve everyone else. Nan Gongmeng said that he was injured and asked if his immortal body was to that extent. Of course, many Jiang Fan said that it was mother who was bothering him and tore her off. This mate was hiding another form, and Jiang Fan said that he would fight in it. I recognized this complex and asked if everything would be okay. But if she said that since he was already so weak, she would first tie him up. The man said that Xiaojiu who only looks at the main character will never be the real Xiaojiu. He eventually told her to come to her senses and their foreheads collided. She screamed and began to fall. Lin Luer understood that they had to go help the main character and because she understood that Jiang Fan was not in a very good condition right now. Nevertheless, she could not overcome her trembling because she simply could not move. Lin Luer couldn't figure out what to do in her mind. Bai Yao put her hand on her shoulder and told her not to even think about the battle between them. Bai Yao said that it would be dangerous for even her to do anything now. The girl said that she now has a more important task and needs to concentrate. Bai Yao crouched down and said that she would help her guide her soul to the sword world. However, unexpectedly, Bai Yao took the girl's hand as if she was going to propose to her. Lin Luer asked in confusion what she was doing. However, Bai Yao smiled and told her to relax. It was just a drop of blood. After this, Lin Luer blushed and seemed to change into another state. Bai Yao supported her and told her to relax and enter her world. After that, she placed a drop of blood in an incomprehensible sphere. Bai Yao praised Lin Luer for being so sweet and obedient. After that, she looked at the progress of the battle and said that Jiang Fan and Xiaojiu were not cute at all. Ultimately, this leaf screamed so loudly that it blocked the ears of everyone who heard it. He could not overcome all his pain and could hardly stand on his feet. At the same time, Lin Luer barely kept her eyes open and she looked at Bai Yao. The girl said that in this case it all depends on her. This sheet was right in front of her, and she was still indignant at how they dare to ask such a weak woman to cope with this and realized that she would need to talk to the master as soon as they returned. Lin Luer slowly closed her eyes and wished her sister good luck in her thoughts. Very soon he found himself parallel to the room. Directly in front of her was Xiaojiu. The woman smiled softly and said that she had finally arrived. Lin Luer slowly walked out of the lake and opened her eyes. She did not understand what was happening and began to look around. She finally realized that this is the same small world that she found herself in then. Lin Luer asked who this person was sitting in front of her and whether it was the same sister she had seen before. The girl said that her name was Nangong Meng and she said that she had been living in this mirror lunar climate for more than 1,000 years. She handed her a glass of water and said that since she was here again, she knew what she wanted. She said that this was nothing more than an attempt to save her terminally ill other half. He said very clearly that this was indeed the case and asked her what she should really do. She said that right now Jiang Fan is fighting her, but it is obvious that their strength is disproportionate. Nangong Meng said that in that case, if she can solve this 1,000-year-old riddle before the tea evaporates, then she will help. Suddenly, from these drops of water, go chips appeared, which decomposed into a half-disassembled batch. Nangong Meng said that there might still be a solution. She said that although the master taught her a little, she did not play chess very well. Nangong Meng said that it is precisely because she is not particularly good at it that perhaps she is making a decision that should not exist at all. Lin Luer looked at the white chip in her hand and asked what she should do. The girl understood that not only did she need to, she had to find a solution and Jiang Fan and Baya were still waiting for her. However, at some point her head began to spin and she did not understand what was happening. The girl understood that she couldn't just lose consciousness here. Vision began to blur. Just before the end, she saw Nangong Meng's face. From powerlessness, she could no longer hold that same chip in her hand and the only desire she had left was to fall asleep. Unable to overcome this desire, very soon her head began to fall. A moment later, her head was already on the board itself. The sister said that so many years had already been lost in this game. However, despite this amount of time, this long time has not yet come to an end. Suddenly, Lin Luer opened her eyes. However, what surprised her was the fact that she woke up with her in human form and in the form of a fox. Someone yelled in her ear to stop messing around, and if she didn't do this, she wouldn't be in time for Her Majesty's return. What is even more surprising is the fact that she was named Xiaoju. Lin Luer did not immediately understand what was happening and she had the feeling that she had forgotten something very important. The same fox who addressed her said that if it weren't for her, he would not have led such a little fox like her to the queen. At the same time, Xiaoju looked at her image in the water. For a very long time I could not understand how it was possible that she became a fox. Another older fox said that she is the only six-tailed fox that has taken human form in the last 100 years and it is a shame that she is so distracted. Xiaoju apologized and said that she was lost in her thoughts. The fox said that the queen's companion is a human king. However, he also said that every time she returns, she talks about what new things have happened on Earth and she will like it. That fox said that she was ahead and advised her to go straight and not lose her head. Very soon they found themselves on the sunny lawn. Xiaoju looked around and couldn't believe what she just saw. In front of her was a sakura tree. Behind it were all the other foxes. Some of them had only 2 or 3 tails, while in their head there was a 9-tailed fox. It was Her Majesty who said that then the king promised her that they would build a platform for her, with deer that would reach up to the clouds so that at night she could catch beautiful views. Xiaoju said that no matter how tall the building is, it is impossible to truly reach the stars. All the other foxes, when they heard this statement, immediately turned around and looked angrily at those who entered. The same mentor who protected Xiaoju covered her with his own body. He leaned over and said that this child had just gained spiritual wisdom, so he spoke without thinking. Her Majesty said that it was not important at all and told everyone to hold their breath. She said that, as she mentioned, they cannot pick stars with their own hands. However, the most important thing is to make her experience that very feeling that she can do it, and the Majesty said that people call this feeling love and love they, the clan of demon foxes, live. Xiaoju turned to the queen and asked if she was able to receive love after taking on a human form. Her Majesty said that it was quite the opposite, and she knew what love was before. As it turned out, the queen and king were buried on a deer platform where they could get the stars. The whole world laughed at their love, and even the people themselves laughed at this love. One of the flayers asked, "But is this really the last of the local fox demons?" He said that the wind of one kingdom was bewitched by a fox, and such demons cannot be kept at home. In the end, this all led to disaster for the fox demons. The man also said that not only did he build a deer, but he also dared to secretly reduce the court tribute to the sect, and now he has to kill these foxes, and thus he dug a hole for himself. The man had already decided to stop doing this nonsense and said that they would return after another visit. At the same time, Xiaoju watched all this happen and did not understand why all this was happening. However, the men still found this same fox and said that you need to be more careful because there is only one hiding here, but there is only one tail. Thus, people realized that this was not a demonic fox, but an ordinary one, but it didn't matter to them whether it was a demon or not, because they just wanted to kill. However, unexpectedly, a stranger appeared from the depths of the forest and said that his fellow practitioners had achieved a lot today. She keeps remembering that day that changed everything, spent it. In front of them was still young Jiang Fan, who asked if they could let the little fox go for him and offered them some gold. Then Xiaoju finally realized that she had met her love. She remembered all these days when she, together with the master and with all the other animals, lived calmly. She still cherishes the memories of how Jiang Fan explained what was happening around her. When she grew up and could fight, she could not forget your amazing battles. At some point they started playing Go. Lisa moved one piece and continued the game. She said that before he knew it, 300 years had passed. Jiang Fan said that it was really so much fun yesterday. She was a little fox who had not yet acquired a human form, but in the blink of an eye everything changed. Jiang Fan said that in the blink of an eye, the forest eye had become an opponent that even he could not defeat. Nevertheless, the girl understood that the 300 years that had passed for the teacher were simply a moment. Jiang Fan said that this is indeed a moment, but now he doesn't even have anything else to teach her. Writing immediately understood what was going on and asked what he meant. Jiang Fan said that she is the first and his student, and he is proud with all his heart that he has a student like her. The man said that now that the ban between heaven and earth has been broken, the West has begun to invade and the continent lies in ruins. The man said that he could no longer remain indifferent. Xiaoju was immediately indignant because he himself swore that he would not interfere with the world, and if he violated it, he would be deprived of the status of immortal, and his soul would gradually dissipate. However, the man said that he could become immortal again, and even if he lost it, he would live another 1,000 years on Earth, and that would definitely be enough. Jiang Fan asked what the difference is between him and the immortals who have lost their humanity, and if he just stands on the sidelines and does nothing. Jiang Fan touched his forehead to Xiaoju's head, who was crying, and told her to go and look for answers to the questions of her own life that he could not teach her, and from that day on, she completed her studies. A few days later, Xiaoju saw off the protagonist. Unfortunately for her, who expected the master to turn around, at least for a little while, he would no doubt go ahead. Nevertheless, the girl understood that from the very beginning her answer was the same, and that answer was him, Jiang Fan. It was deep night. Xiaoju leaned against the wood table and was lost in her thoughts. As she looked into the distance, she realized that 300 years had indeed passed, and Xiaoju said that now she finally understands what she said that day. She turned the winter tree into Sakura and said that they demon foxes really cannot live without love. She thanked her queen again. Xiaoju realized that this should be her answer. She squinted and realized that soon she would be near the master. At the same time, the most intense fighting took place in the central continent. They occurred between humans and non-humans, between ordinary animals and dragons. At that time, Jiang Fan could not stand on his feet. He spoke about all those organizations that surrounded him and his people. The man smiled and said that the man had definitely put in a lot of effort and had a very high opinion of him. At the same time, another person approached him with a light gait. I drank it through. He greeted the main character, who became the head of the Eastern heretics and was still immortal. After this he said that he would bring him to trial. Jiang Fan spat out the blood from his mouth and made up his mind. He made a provocative gesture and told him to try it. When Jiang Fan called him worthless, he lunged forward. Enraged, he asked how he dared mock the king, and he made another exit. He swung his sword. However, as expected, the main character easily defeated him with just one swing of his sword. The knight himself could not even believe that this happened. After this, Jiang Fan told them to move on. He told everyone to come up if they are not afraid to die. All the other knights, when they saw how their head immediately died, wrote among themselves because no one wanted to go to slaughter. Unexpectedly, some mystical Xiaojiu said that the people of the Holy See are actually just a bunch of dregs. A huge eye appeared in the sky and said that with all these people, they could not destroy one person from the east. This eye began to charge some kind of attack and said that this would be his personal invitation to hell. However, at the moment when the eye said that it would be an honor for him to become their food, this eye was magically divided into two. Wheels appeared on the stage and cut this very eye and said that it looks like she arrived just in time. The girl flew up to the main character with a light gait. Jiang Fan clearly didn't expect something like this and couldn't believe it. Immediately after this, the girl rushed into his arms. Smiling, she said that this would be her answer. However, let's go back to Nan Gongmeng, who she stayed now. She asked the main character if he remembers what he said that day. He said that he would stay by her side and that he was ready to wait all his life for her answer. Do it. As she continued to fight, she still asked questions. And the main question was one word: why? Out of despair, she cried and became divided. She couldn't believe that in the end, he didn't choose her. All the times, she refused to let Jiang Fan leave. She said that it was just a trap of people from the west and they were raiding Ling Zhao only to force him to leave, and the situation in the right city was becoming more and more difficult. However, Jiang Fan said that he is now a great demon who is guarding southern Ling Zhao. The man said that if she left, it would lead to a split between different people and demons. However, she still refused. She asked if he really wanted this. However, Jiang Fan once again showed the same soft smile and told her not to worry, he would return soon in the evening. He ended up holding him by the clothes. Thus, Xiaoju found herself in the situation she feared most. She was left alone. After that, she really remembers very little. She just remembered how they were ambushed and there was a big battle. She could not forget the blood that filled the sky. She could not help but forget those screams and tears that had happened, spent it, and at the very end she remembers that sudden strike with the sword, prod. As she was dying she finally saw her attacker. What she saw through the red government, firstly, shocked her. She could never even make me forget those strange eyes again. All dragon eyes contained all this truth of the world. And it was at this moment that Lin Luer woke up. With tears in her eyes, the first thing she could say was to call her mother, even though she understood that she had been gone for a long time. Nangong Meng asked with a soft smile from the west if she knew the answer in advance. Nangong Meng said that when she was sleeping in her dream, she saw her past. With tears in her eyes, the student asked if this really meant that these were all her memories. Nangong Meng said that this is indeed the case, and this time we can only say that this is God's will for the darkness. The girl said that the only person who can stop her unfortunate half is most likely her. After that, she wiped away her tears with a soft wave. Sister said that this eye is the eye of the curse of the demon clan. Nangong Meng hugged her and said that it must have been familiar to her. Lin Luer began to remember her mother. She denied the fact that what happened because she saw her mother before leaving. Nangong Meng said that her mother must have died in that battle 000 years ago, and only a few years have passed since she went to the east, and this memory unfortunately, her mother's last magic. Lin Luer asked with tears in her eyes if she really didn't see her mother for the last time. Nangong Meng said that she was sure that it was hard for her to talk about it now, but it was too late. Throwing her out of the portal, she said that she was now counting on her and called her real name, Ofilia Vernielas. Thus, Ofilia Vernielas, the last dragon princess, said goodbye to Nangong Meng. Immediately after this, she found herself on the battlefield. Her eyes, even though they were in tears, were no longer blue but golden. Nangong Meng noticed the girl's presence at the last moment and couldn't believe what had just happened. As it turned out, she was still activated by the mirror blade. She opened her eyes because she understood what all this was fraught with. Looking into her eyes with sympathy, I decided. At the same time, Nangong Meng instantly realized that this was not an ordinary person at all, and those eyes belonged to a dragon. Nangong Meng instantly called out the name of the main character. She asked why he was doing this to her. Surprised, Jiang Fan, who had already been beaten after many fights, opened his eyes wide. She attacked again, but this time not the main character, but Ofilia. Jiang Fan immediately hurried to help her disciple and told Nangong Meng to stop. Ultimately, Jiang Fan protected Ofilia with his own back. When the girl saw this, she still couldn't stop crying. Jiang Fan, despite her, still had the same family eyes while the girl looked at him. Immediately after this, she screamed again, but this time it was despair. Jiang Fan said he wasn't worried even though he started coughing up blood at the same moment. The man said he was still fine. At the same time, Nangong Meng still had money, and the fox himself was being held back by Baya. She calmly said that this time his life was about to end. The man said that he really didn't have much time left, but no matter what happened in this relationship, he was the one who felt sorry for her. Ofilia was immediately scared because she was afraid of what he was really going to do. Nangong Meng asked if he was ready to talk like that and said not to worry. She said that after his death she would bury the whole world with him and he could calmly leave this world that broke their hearts. Immediately after that, she looked at the girl she was standing with behind him. Nangong Meng said with tears in her eyes that after this, the disciples would follow him. Nangong Meng, whose face was covered with a curse and was about to finish her job with tears. However, unexpectedly she was stopped by a certain black web. Nangong Meng cursed again as this was not the first time this happened. Baya said that although she also wants to watch the teacher die, there are several problems. On the page she said that in any case, she does not want to be killed by such a crazy woman and this is not at all the death that a man like him gives. However, while she was saying this, she asked if she really should focus on her right now. Then she finally understood what the woman was talking about because Ofilia was already behind her, who pointed her blade at her. She barely had time to turn her head and noticed this girl. The girl looked at her with a glowing blade and tears in her eyes because she understood what she had gone through. In the end, the only 2 words she could say were that she was sorry. She said that she simply could not allow the teacher to die like this. She said she simply couldn't let this happen and swung it. Realizing that death is inevitable, Xiaojiu said that this time too she lost to him. Her only desire that she had was a request to part with her. Thus, the blade of light broke that very stone. Her last words were how much she loves and has always loved the main character, after which her view was obscured by the bright light of an explosion. 6 months later, significant changes occurred in the Tian Yuan clan. Feminine hands once again skillfully poured themselves a cup of tea. Jumped, Shi Luo said that it had been a long time since she saw the teacher and Ofilia after the secret kingdom in Lingzhou. On the basis, you just told her to be patient and wait, because the weather is just counting fingers for them, and if they are waiting for a person dear to them, then even 100 or 1,000 years will pass, they will still be waiting for him. The third Ofilia said that in any case it's true, but I don't understand how she can say such a thing, even though she herself ran into the main character's room every day to spy. However, in the middle of this pleasant tea party, an incredible explosion occurred. As if getting used to this, Baya said that it was the girl who again arranged what they had. She looked at the autumn butterfly in her hand and said that she would have to disturb it again. As it turned out, the one who caused this explosion was Nai Lo. She looked hard to breathe. At the same time, it turns out that the explosion was not because she did something, but because she was bored. After such a fit of rage, she plopped down on the scorched ground, which was literally cooling from her flame. She looked at the sky and still couldn't think of anything. After that, like a child, she began to beat herself on the ground and complain that these two were simply annoying her. Extending her hand to the sky, she looked at the shadow and was lost in her thoughts. She still didn't understand what was wrong with them. She remembered that she was taught every time to fight for the one she loves, and now she will just have to wait to fall into such depression. Lowering her legs, she looked up and once again apologized for the fact that she again could not restrain herself to the second sister. However, very soon this butterfly whispered something to this girl that brought her into a stupor. Joyful, she asked, did the teacher say that he was returning? With joyful eyes, she shouted that her boredom was finally coming to an end. After that, she quickly went home and said that she was heading to the teacher and told the second sister not to rush. Very soon the fourth sister found herself nearby Yao and Shi Luo. Nai Luo asked really, and the first and third sister already knew, but did not tell her about it, despite the fact that she had been here all morning. However, the girls condemned her for the fact that they always have to be here when the teacher appears, and the girl herself is simply too young for this. After this, Baya asked what Jiang Fan did during his 6 months of seclusion. The girl understood that this should have greatly affected the condition of the protagonist and his immortal source and had previously received a lot of damage. Baya was worried that he would do stupid things like before again. At the same time, Jiang Fan was in his personal library. The young man, who seemed to have not changed all this time, slowly opened his eyes. His eyes were still that beautiful golden color and he looked forward. There he thought that now this is all he can do, and in front of him was a beautiful picture of an aura and a fox.